Welcome to the Board of County Commissioners Agenda Setting Work Session. John Hutchings, the Chair of the Board, and to my left is Co-Chair Commissioner Gary Edwards. To my right is Commissioner Ty Menzer. Good morning. It's after daylight savings time. And so Commissioner Menzer, Commissioner Edwards, myself, Hutchings, and County Manager Ramiro Chavez, and the clerk of the board sitting at the table is Whitney Pearsall. Welcome, Whitney. And we have Megan Porter over here, our PIO manager, supervisor. Thank you. So we're going to review a few agendas today. We'll start with the review of this afternoon's BoCC draft agenda from March the 12th. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Vice Chair Commissioner Edwards.
I can handle that.
All right. And then we'll approve the agenda. And then we'll move into the presentations at about 2:05. This meeting starts at 2 this afternoon. And presentations, we have Public Defense coming in to introduce a new employee.
Yeah, good morning, Commissioners. Patrick O'Connor, the Director of Public Defense Office, will be coming to you and introduce two new attorneys, Christine Blackgeary and William Thurston. Both will be assigned to district court cases. So that will be a good opportunity for you to welcome new employees.
Oh, very nice. No?
No, I don't.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Okay. Next is a presentation on the High Impact Community Grant Awards.
Yeah, Ms. Kat Santana from the Pacific Mountain Organization. She will be coming in here and present the grant awards to specific groups. That will be the Community Youth Services, GROB, Garden Race Bounty, Yelm Community Schools, and Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Southwest Washington. Ms. Santana is the coordinator for the Pacific Mountain Workforce Development Council.
Wonderful. And will she have everybody here? She'll be here by herself?
I believe some of the recipients will be here this afternoon, and hopefully she doesn't take that long in describing all the projects. Hopefully she will acknowledge the recipients as well as the dollar amount.
Wonderful. That's good. Anything?
No, sir.
All right. Then we move to item number 1 on the agenda, which is the opportunity for the public to address the board.
Yes, you may probably see Mr. Pettit coming this afternoon. Later on the agenda, today I have a public testimony that I will follow up. He submitted a letter this morning, and he will be submitting a letter to you this afternoon. And this is in response to the letter that I sent to him on last Friday, March 8th. So I will, and again, this is part of your agenda later on. I think we have enough time to walk you through some of the issues raised on that letter.
Did we get a copy of your letter to him? Or have we seen that?
I have a copy for you today. Yeah.
Okay. Any other anticipated public comment?
Yeah, and also I'd like to circle back on Mr. Bannister comment that he made last week. Mm-hmm. So, and again, we'll follow up on that in more detail later this morning.
Do we anticipate any more or additional folks coming in on that issue?
No, that I know of, Commissioner.
Okay. Anything?
No, sir.
Nope. All right. Number 2 on the agenda, County Manager's update.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. This is an item for your consideration to extend the existing Administrative Assistant 1 position, which is located in the Commissioner's office, to June 30, 2020. This current position ends in May of 2019, June 2019, sorry. And the person who's holding the position has been supporting 2 big projects, the policy manual update and the ERP. Those 2 projects will go way into 2020, and extend that position is going to help us to deliver those projects. We have currently budget on the non-departmental, and I will ask for your consideration to extend this position.
And that was on the policy manual, and what was the other one?
The ERP.
Okay. Thank you. Anything?
No.
Okay. All right, that takes us to item number 3, consent items A through D.
Could I just?
Yeah, please.
Just for a second. What, you had used an initial ERP.
Yeah, that's, Robin can explain in more details the enterprise
Reporting
system.
Enterprise reporting
Just, the
system.
public's watching, they need to know. Thank you.
Right, and what that is, I mean, even that title is not very descriptive. It is our finance and HR systems that we'll be replacing. It's the largest IT project that the county has ever done.
Okay.
So let's change it. That's not very descriptive.
That's
Okay.
what they're called.
Okay, so the consent items A through D.
Commissioner Messi, do you have any
Oh, yes.
questions? No.
The first one, approval of resolution extending the end date of position. We just talked about that.
Mr. Romero jumped to the consent.
Yeah,
He called county manager update and you went to consent calendar.
Oh, I
That's why you're
apologize.
no, that's okay. I thought, wait a minute, we just talked about
Apologize.
that.
It's too much extra coffee this morning.
Okay. Got it. All right, then, there's no issues on that? On A?
No.
Okay. B, emergency services, sole source contract.
Yeah, you reviewed this item last week, and the Emergency Services Department received a grant for $16,000 to provide a training related to fire prevention and protection. And there's only one actually outfit that provides that specific training. That's the National Fire Prevention Association. And the staff in the department has gone through the process of justifying a sole source. And just for the public's perspective, we have a policy, a procurement policy in the county that anything that when we secure services for an outside vendor, an outside consultant, we need to secure 3 bids, or we have to go open for bids depending on the dollar amount. But also give us the latitude to go through a sole source, meaning there is only one outfit can provide those specific services to the county. But also within that balance, within that request, we need to make sure that we meet all the state law requirements, as well as the internal auditor has to weigh in on that. That's how the policy forms. Staff has gone through this process, have coordinated with the prosecuting attorney's office, as well as with the internal auditor, and both have confirmed and agreed that this is a sole source, meaning there is no other outfit that can provide those services.
Okay.
Is this, I think the commissioners all received a handwritten letter from a citizen related to wanting us to have a fire plan for...
That's a little bit different.
Okay, I didn't know if this would connect to that.
It's not directed to this. I think the letter from a citizen that you received was urging the commissioners to develop a wildfire protection plan, which is a little bit different than this training. At some point, I will probably bring that item next week because I need to understand what that really means.
Yeah, good.
But I will bring that item for you for your discussion next week.
Okay.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, I just didn't want to miss
Yeah.
a chance to say, hey, this is what we're working on, but I'll look forward to that next week.
Anything else, sole source?
Sounds good.
Item C, emergency services appointment to the Homeland Security Region 3.
Yeah, this proposal is for you to consider to designate the Emergency Services Director and Emergency Management Manager to Thurston County as Thurston County representative to Homeland Security Region 3 Committee. The Homeland Security Number 3 Committee is comprised of representatives from counties, cities, and emergency management programs as defined under the Revised Code of Washington, RCW 38.52, Emergency Management. And as a federal recognized, tribal nations participate on this, as well as Grace Harbor, Lewis, Mason, Pacific, and Thurston counties. All 5 county cities and tribes form this committee, and Thurston County is the lead agency in the region. So we need to have a formal assignment for a representation. So this proposal is for you to consider to have the Emergency Services Director and the Emergency Management Manager to serve in this committee.
All right.
No, good.
Letter D rather, is the auditor's, the voucher list.
Yes.
I've gone through it. You have a chance?
Good to go.
through it? Okay. No questions on that?
No.
Item number 4, department items. Now we move into emergency services, set a public hearing.
Yes, for your consideration is for you to set a public hearing for Tuesday, April 9th, 2019 at 3 in the afternoon in this room. And this is related to, for you to take public testimony for potential changes to Thurston County Title VI. And this is, some of the changes related to this Title VI will be to increase the ambulance applications fee that we have on a yearly basis from $20 to $100. It has not been changed since 1992. Also, we'll ask to increase the liability insurance going from $1 million to $2 million. And also, what is more importantly, I believe, when a paramedic accompany a patient via ambulance to a hospital, we're asking the ambulance company to bill Medic 1 rather than the patient. And so those are the major changes that you might be receiving public testimony as relates to proposed changes in Title VI.
Okay, anything?
No, good.
Anything on that?
And this item is in alignment with initiative number 2 of the county strategic plan.
So we're increasing the fee, presumably, from $20 to $100 for the application. And what is the actual county's cost that's incurred in processing? The $100 isn't going to count it? Is it going to cover that?
I don't have the number in place, but certainly it's more than $100. But
It hasn't been updated since 1999?
1982.
92?
Yes. So, Kurt Harden, Director of Emergency Services. We went out and we did a survey of other county application processes, and we found out that most county application fees were more than $100. Some were a little bit less, most were more. And so we settled on $100 because, one, it seemed to be able to meet most of the costs. It's very hard, as you can tell, to go through the whole process of trying to determine the cost administratively of what a license or a permit costs. So we went and just did a survey of the various application fees around the county.
Okay, and the market's going to bear that easily, I would imagine.
Since it's for all ambulances, it's one license for all ambulances. So as an example, Olympic Ambulance has 8. Off the top of my head, I can't remember how many AMR has, but that just is one fee for all of those licenses, or for all those ambulances they operate.
Okay, good. Thank you, Kurt. Item number 5, Public Health and Social Services approval of amendment number 1.
Yeah, for your consideration is to amend the existing contract, which is number C18000077 with the Department of Ecology to accept an additional $40,000 for a total of $160,000. You approved this contract last year, but the additional $40,000 goes beyond the 25% additional threshold that you approved, and that is why you see this item before you. The additional, the $160,000 is related to support the local source control partnership, which provides hands-on pollution prevention advice and regulatory assistance to businesses and other organizations that generate small quantities of dangerous waste. By helping business owners do their part, we also help prevent polluted runoff from damaging Washington streams, rivers, and Puget Sound. So this program is related to address water quality by education.
Go ahead.
And this is something from ecology.
Yes.
And I'm wondering how this, you're talking about runoff, where are we at on ecology with biosolids and permitting runoff? Here, they're giving us money here to try and prevent runoff while they're issuing permits to create runoff? Is that,
So are
we working on that?
are you asking in a specific project?
Yes, I am.
For the biosolids? I have not seen.
and could we use this money maybe to oppose that type of activity? Is that something that
Well,
would be?
we not necessarily have used this money, but we have already opposed to that potential permit, as you know. So
Yes, but is there more that we could do on that
at this
particular
point,
issue?
At this point, as I recall, and Art can help us on this with additional information, is the Department of Ecology is in the process of addressing all the comments they have received.
Reevaluating.
And then they will make a determination, the next step, whether they continue with the application process, or perhaps they need to do additional environmental studies, which may require an environmental impact statement.
Have they said they are reevaluating? Is that-
I don't
That's
know.
what I believe here. Go
I
ahead.
don't know, but while you're walking up, Art, are you asking though, is that additional 40,000, is it directed for a specific use only,
No.
or a specific project?
It's a programmatic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good morning, I'm Art Starry, I'm the Environmental Health Director for Thurston County Public Health and Social Services. And as Ramiro indicated, the proposal that you're being asked to consider this afternoon is for something called local source control, which is for small businesses that use or generate hazardous materials. So it could be an auto shop or a paint shop or something like that, that has deals with toxic materials that could be released to the environment. So we work with them, as Ramiro described, to try to make sure that they manage those materials properly and dispose of them properly and have spill response plans, that sort of stuff. And it's different than the biosolids program that Commissioner Edwards asked about, which is something permitted by Department of Ecology. And we can't take this money and use it for dealing with biosolids, for instance.
Okay.
In response to the question about biosolids, though, my understanding is Department of Ecology is considering all the public comments they've received. They'll be developing a responsiveness document. In other words, they'll respond to all those different comments and questions and suggestions, and then they're going to make a determination about whether the permit can be issued as proposed, whether it needs to be modified, whether it's going to be rescinded. I don't know the specific time frame for that. I'll be happy to check up on it for you, but my understanding is they received a lot of comments, and it's going to take them quite a bit of time to be able to develop a response to them.
Okay, thank you.
How many businesses are involved into this contract getting, would you,
As proposed, we'll be doing, I think it's 170 inspections. That's up about 25% from the original proposal. And so it's a very effective program. It tends to, we advertise it a bunch of different ways. It tends to be something where we get a lot of participants without a lot of concern. I mean, not concern, but I think the folks are very willing to participate because we try to go in and provide education and outreach first. And if we see there's a major problem, we'll work with them to get that fixed. But it tends to be more of an assistance program than a strict regulatory program.
For businesses with toxic waste or
We have
hazardous waste?
toxic waste and hazardous
And
materials.
is that just in unincorporated Thurston County then?
It's actually, it's within the whole county. We focus on certain areas or certain types of businesses, but because we're the health department and we have jurisdiction over the entire county, the businesses could be anywhere.
So it could be the derelict brewery with toxic waste?
It could be something like that, although in that case, it's kind of different because right now they're not an active business, but we'd be working mostly with like a small auto shop or a small paint shop, something like that. That's the intent of this program. And if you go back and you look at the different studies and things, you'll find that one of the things that is of concern is how toxic materials get released into surface waters and how they bioaccumulate. And so this is truly one of those things where let's prevent it from getting there in the first place. That's a whole lot more cost effective and better than trying to clean it up afterwards.
So we have it here on our BoCC agenda, not on the BOH. Does that matter one way or the other?
No, because there's a money involved.
It's a money issue?
It's a money contract.
It's a contract. It's a financial
Any further?
contract.
I wanted to ask if you thought it was effective, and you answered that, so I appreciate
Yeah, no,
that.
we're very pleased with the program, and it's a neat thing because it doesn't even require grant matches. It's 100% funded.
Nice. So we have to vote on accepting more money.
Yeah, and that's, as Ramiro indicated, it's
Yeah,
because
that's funny.
of the language we put in before where anything less, 25% or less, Shelley could just administratively do that, but because Ecology offered us more money, we have to come back to you. And that seemed like a good deal if they're willing to offer us more.
That's great. Thank you, Art. No more
Thank you.
questions on that.
Thank you.
Then we move to item number 6 on the agenda, commissioners and the county manager's items, where we report back on stuff. And that closes the BoCC meeting, but we're going to convene at 3:30 the BOH, Board of Health. So I'm jumping over to the Board of Health agenda for today, just to keep the consistency of today going. And we will convene the Board of Health at 3:30 or thereabouts. And we begin with proclamations, and I call the meeting to order, approval, all that stuff. Then we start with proclamations. And the first one is National Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Shelley Slaughter, Director of Thurston County Public Health and Social Services and Administrator of the Board of Health. And with me is
Lydia Hodgkinson, Clerk of the Board of Health.
So yes, we are very excited to have 2 excellent proclamations today. One is National Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, and the program specialist Jennifer Popchak-Hakim, who leads our developmental disabilities program, will be here to introduce some amazing guests that are going to be very happy to share with you some of their experiences about the services that they receive as a result of our developmental disabilities program, and their names are included here. Jonathan Plager, who is President and CEO of Morningside, Savannah Bray from People First, and Heather Harper from Office of the Governor. So there will also be clients that will be present, and they're very much excited to receive the proclamation from you today.
Way cool. Okay, they'll get a photo op too.
Yes, that would be great. And then the next proclamation is National Brain Injury Awareness Month, and Mark Moffett, who is our Community Program Manager for our Veteran Services Program, will be here to share some information about Brain Injury Awareness Month and accept the proclamation. And at this time, I'm unaware if there will be other guests present or not, along with Mr. Moffett.
Okay. Well, maybe it's next week is the child abuse prevention.
April is Child Abuse and
April.
Neglect Awareness
Okay,
Month,
coming up.
as well as Sexual Assault Prevention Month.
Okay, good, thank you. So I put my pinwheel on today. That's global, yeah, okay, always.
Pinwheels
All
are
right.
good year-round.
All right, thank you very much. Now we're moving into, God bless you. Item number 3 on the agenda, opportunity for the public to address the board. Are you aware of anybody that might be coming in?
I am not aware.
Okay, go ahead.
I think we'll have a local doctor come in and talk about brain injury issues.
Oh, excellent. Great.
Do you know who that is?
Well, I don't want to put him on the spot.
Oh,
but
in
I've-
case, okay, got it,
He
that's
had an
fine.
issue with some of the playground activities, and
Oh, okay, yeah, I know who you're speaking of. All right, thank you. Now, number 4, consent items, A and B. Number A is acceptance of work session notes, so we'll go through that. Thank you, Lydia. And then approval of Washington State, item B rather, Washington State Department of Health MOU for Group B water systems.
And you'll note this one's a little bit different than the one you just heard on BoCC, because this is not a MOU that involves the transaction of funds. It's just the
Okay.
renewal of our existing MOU.
Okay. And is there any information on that? Or do you have any questions on it? Let me ask that. Any questions on item B on the agenda? Consent?
does it tie in, we discussed, a week or so ago about the possibility of getting feedback on water quality issues. Does it tie in with that? That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, I need to coordinate with the staff a briefing on that, on the water quality issue.
Nothing to do with this particular
No,
issue?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay.
Okay.
Can Shelley just give, can you just give a slightly deeper
Sure.
overview
I'll
of what this
actually,
is?
since I have Art in the audience, I'll ask Art to provide the update on that.
Come on back, Art. Thank you, sir.
So once again, this is Art Story with the Environmental Health Division. And what the Memorandum of Understanding does is it basically renews our authority to monitor and permit small public water supplies, which are called Group B water systems. And they're typically ones that serve 15 homes or less, but they could also be something that could serve a church or something else. Anyways, it's a small public water supply. The way the state law is written is that in order for us to have a local program, we need to have an agreement with the state where they delegate the authority to us to do that. And so that we've had a program like this for a number of years, and we think it serves the public well because we have a better understanding of what's going on in our community, I think, than the State Department does, and we're better in a better position to integrate that with land use reviews and other things, and so it's worked out very well. This provides us with, again, the authority to help people who've got problems with their water supplies, or if they're trying to get them permitted. Say if they're some ones that you've heard about recently had to do with serving some communities down in the South County, like there's one that was dealing with like a wedding facility, so that allows us to again be involved with that. So the permit or the agreement actually expired at the end of last year, and so we wanted to get it renewed. This was something we proposed to bring to you in February, but then the snow hit, and so now we're bringing it to you in March.
Okay. So what's the term of the MOU? Is it annual or 5 years?
I should have had that memorized, but it's how many years, Ms. Lydia? I think it's a 5-year agreement, but let me look. Why, you're asking me these technical questions.
You're a technical guy.
Yeah. Where does it say that? Put me on the spot and I can't read,
That's fine. I just don't remember it coming up last year. I didn't know if it was an annual
Yeah,
thing
no,
or a
it's about,
5-year.
it's a,
So it's multi-year.
it's a multi-year project, and I apologize for not being able to read on the spot.
That's fine. I have it on my computer.
Okay.
Thank you, Art. Any other questions? Go ahead.
And is this is just something that passes some authority down to the county
It passes authority down to the
address
county.
some of the state issues
Right, because otherwise it would
for
be.
public safety?
For public safety and protection of drinking water, which is, again, is a kind of a key, protecting environmental resources is both a department objective as well as one of the county strategic plan issues. And if we didn't do it, then the state would do it. And while they would do a decent job, I think we could do a better. We're able to serve the community better by having a local program.
And as we get into this briefing coming up on water quality issues, I don't know if there's going to be a staff time issue, but things like water quality in some of these wells that are providing, maybe it's a venue for where the public gathers. Art mentioned maybe a church or wedding venue, or do we keep logs on their well water quality and that type of thing?
So for public water supplies, there is periodic testing that takes place. When a Group B water system is initially approved, they have to do a test that covers a variety of parameters, inorganic and organic tests, including bacteria, nitrogen, and other things. And then every 3 years, they have to do some follow-up testing to make sure that the water quality is good. It's a much shorter list of samples. It's basically nitrogen and bacteria. And so that's what's going on. And we have those records for the public water supplies. We don't have a complete database of all the single-family systems in the county, but we do have records on Group B systems as well. And the state also has extensive records on the bigger water supplies.
So if we had a question about water quality, you do have a list of...
We've got lots of ways to look at things. And,
Okay,
And if it sounds like there's a briefing coming, if you can give us the questions that you want us to try to answer, we'll do our best to be prepared.
Let's coordinate that. Yeah.
And
Okay,
the
thank you.
agreement doesn't actually continues indefinitely unless either party chooses to ignore it.
There you go.
To cancel it.
So you will not see this again if you like, unless you want to terminate.
But if you decide that this is just too much of a problem for the county, then we could give 30 days notice and withdraw from the agreement.
Well, no, it sounds like it'll be beneficial for water quality for the citizens, so, yeah.
Any more?
Yeah, we think it is.
Nope, good.
Thank you, Art. Now we're
Give me
moving
enough
in.
time, I can read things.
Going into department items, number 5 on the agenda, Thurston County Local Impact. This is oral health project in Thurston County.
Yes, so Leslie Health, our public health nutritionist, will be here to share with you about our oral health project, of which we received grant funding from the Acora Foundation to support the improvement of oral health in children in our community through various activities, including partnerships with the schools and education and outreach. Last month was Children's Oral Health Awareness Month. And due to the cancellation of the meeting, due to the weather, we still wanted to share this information about this great program. There will be some members from Acora Foundation and others present with Leslie, and we do have the oral health proclamation from last month to give to them, although we won't be reading that or featuring that in the proclamations portion of today's Board of Health.
Okay.
Is this in coordination with the schools, like the SMILE project, things like that?
Yes, this grant is in partnership with the schools. I believe starting with the North Thurston School District. Is that correct, Liz? And with the hope that it will expand to other schools. So one of the programs is, for example, the dental sealant program, in which kids could actually receive dental sealants at their schools, which prevents cavities and other oral health long-term issues. And so that's a program that we are trying to promote. There are many partners that participate in this, and I don't know that if the Smile Mobile specific program that you're talking about is a part of this particular grant, but it is a broad initiative of oral health partners and advocates to improve the health of our kids, because that dental hygiene early on is very important and prevents many illnesses down the road.
Do we have a monetary amount that's associated with this that we're either obtaining or dedicating to? Or?
Yes, we received a grant in the amount initially of, do you remember the amount? Approximately, the BoCC approved that several months ago. I don't have that particular information in front of me as to how much the grant was, and I don't want to tell you the wrong number off the top of my head, but we do have funding that's fully supporting our participation in this project.
Maybe we can bring that information this afternoon as part of the
Yes.
presentation. Yeah.
Did you have any further information to add, Liz? Liz is the director of our Child, Family, and Community Wellness program, of which the oral health program falls under.
One of our county epidemiologists, Marianne O'Garo, is participating in some of the data analysis and planning that has to do with this program as well. That's part of what the contract that we have with them covers. They're paying for some of her time. This is a 2-year project. The first year is the planning portion, so that's what we're in now. And then the second year will be the actual service delivery, where people are going into schools, working with school nurses on having those sealants available.
Sealant program sounds like that's a big piece of this.
That is a big focus of this program.
Okay, thank you. Makes sense. I mean, I know oral health has a lot to do with the overall health.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Anything further?
No, thank you.
Anything? Okay. Number 6, and this is the NFP, the Nurse Family Partnership Program.
Yes, there were a couple items that we wanted to discuss under item 6, but mainly we want to recognize our Nurse Family Partnership nurses for achieving their mental health, infant mental health certification. This is a very rigorous program and certification. There are not very many Nurse Family Partnership programs that have the honor to have nurses on staff that have this certification, and so we're very proud of them. We wanted to recognize them and also provide an update on the home visiting budget proposals within the legislature. And also you requested last week that we share a little bit about our National Service Office Award for expanding nurse family partnership program within the region. So Liz Davis, who was just up here, will be recognizing the nurses, including Gretchen Toller, who is the program manager. The nurses will be present, or at least those who can manage in their schedule to get away from their visits today, and will provide an overview and recognize the nurses for this achievement.
Yeah. Does Gretchen and her team that have received this training, does Thurston County lead in that type of participation and training of the NFP stuff?
Yes.
The NFP program throughout the state?
Yes, I believe so. Although I will find out more information on that data as far as how we compare to other counties and communities. But this was something that they requested to seek. The number of high acuity families that we're serving in Thurston County has dramatically increased, and this is an amazing certification that also supports our county strategic plan initiatives, as well as our Thurston Thrives Partners for Children initiatives as well, to reduce trauma in kids and advance the mental health of young babies and their families.
I anticipate you're gonna find that we lead in this effort, and that's prideful.
We're very proud of our
Yeah.
program, and yes, we strive to be innovative and be a leader amongst the state and throughout the country in this program.
Wonderful. All right, thank you. So number 7 is adoption, urging the legislature to support local public health services.
Yes, so this is a resolution from the Board of Health to encourage the legislature to adopt foundational public health services. As you may know, last week, the House passed House Bill 1497, and so this advances to the Senate. You asked last time about the amount of money, the amount of funding that is requested, and WASALFO, the Washington State Association of Local Public Health Officials, of which we are an active member. I am on the board, and Art Starry is the legislative representative for WASALFO, and that is an affiliate of WASAC, the Washington State Association of Counties. And this has been WASAC's and WASALFO's top priority. The governor, in the governor's budget, did include less money than the assessment showed was needed, and so there is a request to the Senate that includes additional funding for foundational public health, which are those core public health services that only local government and local health jurisdictions can provide. The public counts on us to provide these essential services, and that includes communicable disease prevention and control, environmental health, vital records, maternal child health services, and other critical, important foundational health services. And there are many other boards of health across the state that have passed similar resolutions, just encouraging, showing our support and demonstrating the need to the legislature for this funding.
Okay. Anything?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Now we're moving on to number 8 on the agenda, department items, food environmental services.
Yes, so Sammy Berg, our environmental health specialist, will be here to share about not only the food program, but also our schools program and our water recreation facility and vector program. So it's going to be a broad overview of everything that our food and environmental services program offers to our community and the really important services that they provide.
Okay, anything? Anything on that? Food and environmental, okay. Nice to have Sammy in the house. And then move on to the Board of Health members, health-related activities, and health officers report. Where are you? Oh, there you are on the next page. So Dr. Wood will be here?
Yes, Dr. Wood will be here, be providing an update to you on measles, the flu, and I believe that will be the primary focus of her report.
And then we have the director's report, item number 11.
Yes, and I will provide a brief overview, since we have a very packed agenda today, of some of our key program highlights and accomplishments over the last month in our department.
It's an aggressive agenda. And then we adjourn at 5:30 or thereabouts. Anything before we leave Board of Health?
No, sir.
Anything?
No?
Good, takes care of Board of Health for today.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
See
Shelley.
you this afternoon.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you.
And we still have time. We're going to get through now next Tuesday's BoCC meeting agenda and the Transportation Benefit District next Tuesday as well. So we'll start with the Tuesday, March 19, Board of County Commissioner agenda. And we will call the meeting to order at 2 o'clock, and the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Menser, then approval of the agenda and minutes, and an opportunity to address the board, for a public to address the board. It's a little premature, perhaps.
Yeah, I don't have anything.
Okay. Then move into the county manager's update. Probably nothing there yet.
If depending on the testimony that you may receive today, if there's any items that I need to follow up, I will do so.
Okay. Then consent items, currently A and B. And A is approval of request for qualifications for Title 26 contract.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
we
item.
need to work on the language for the action, but the action has two elements. This is related to the contract with the Gordon item, and there's the current contract is about to expire, so Superior Court is asking to extend the current contract to April 30, 2019, and also is requesting to issue a request for qualifications to secure new contracts. So there's two items in that. I will clean up the language a little bit to make it more clear, but that's really the intent of this action.
Okay. Go ahead.
It says under Title 26, what is that referring to?
Family law.
Under
Yeah,
family
family
law,
that's-
not our
that's
code.
No, that's
Title
different.
26 is divorces and
Oh, okay.
Domestic stuff, not the county code.
Thank
That's-
you. It's not county code.
That's what I was trying
Yeah.
to distinguish
Thank you.
from.
and it's distinguished from like dependency proceeding, or this is specifically related to family law matters like divorces, child custody,
Okay.
modifications.
Thank you.
Maybe we
Good
can
catch.
add clarification as to where the title is coming from.
Yes,
Will that
yeah.
be
Okay,
helpful? Yeah.
very good.
Okay.
Anything on Guardian item? Okay. And consent item letter B, the vouchers, and we'll get that list and go through that through the week. And then moving on to department items, number 4 is the auditor set a public hearing to change precinct boundaries.
Yeah, this is for your consideration. The county auditor has a request for you to set a public hearing for Tuesday, April 9th, 2019 at 3 in the afternoon in this room. And the intent is for you to take public testimony for potential precinct boundary adjustments in the county. These changes from the auditor's office is necessary. Those are necessary adjustments related to the annexed areas that we have experienced in the past, and that will also improve precinct boundaries. The result of these proposed changes will have 12 precincts with boundary line adjustments, updating 11 precincts, and 1 commissioner legal description district that needs to be changed as well. And also they will be repealing 5 precincts and the associated legal descriptions.
All right, do you have any time?
Maybe one question.
Go ahead.
I don't want to take it from Ty. You mentioned the commissioner's district. Will they come with a map or something to show what adjustments are being made?
As part of their presentation, but if you like, I can probably ask them to come prior to
That would be
the
good.
public hearing for you to have a larger understanding of that.
I would like that. Would you like that?
Possibly. I don't know what the district boundary adjustment is. That's all I'm asking for.
Yeah.
No, but certainly, 2 options. You want to wait until April 9th, where the auditor's office will present to the public as well as to you all the different changes. I think particularly the 2 of you have seen that similar presentation in the past.
Yes.
You haven't. But I can probably ask the auditor's office to come earlier
Yeah.
prior to the
Okay.
April 9th, so you can have a little more information.
And I
related to
guess
that public hearing.
most of it is a formality, but
Yeah.
on a technical issue like that, it could involve some citizens advising that they are concerned.
Right.
Okay.
I would like that. Would you like a briefing ahead of time?
Sure.
Okay.
Sounds like some of them, though, are just based on the fact that there was annexation and
Yeah.
a precinct can't cut across county and city line, is that correct?
Yeah,
or-
all that is a combination of that. Also, is the intent is to balance the population between the
And
different
school
precincts
district?
and school districts. All that
Yeah.
is part of that, but I will ask the auditor's office to come. Yeah.
Good, thank you. Number 5, juvenile court probation, approval of a contract with Heartstrides Ranch.
Yeah, for your consideration is to approve a contract for $53,120 with the Heartstrides Ranch. This is a equestrian, I believe, assisted program that supports programs for the juveniles involved in the juvenile court. And this particular contract was from January 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2019. And the $53,120 is paid by the treatment sales tax, and it's already included in the budget.
Right, and I heard a presentation from them last year at Grand Mound, and they were part of that Together conference. And it was just amazing, the results they're having with the juveniles working with the horses.
Yeah, this is a good program. And Mike Fenton, the juvenile court administrator, will be here and will provide additional information to the effectiveness of this program.
Okay, any questions, comments?
Nope.
Okay.
And this item is aligned with initiative number 10 of the Thurston Strategic Plan, Thurston County.
All right, thank you. Then we move on to item number 6, central services, final acceptance of a certain project on Tilly Road HVAC improvements.
Yeah, during the normal process, when a contract is issued to provide services or construction services, we go to the point of actually closing the contract, and you need to take an action to close the contract. In this particular case, there is closing the contract with Capital Heating and Cooling Systems of Lacey, which they provided improvements to the HVAC system at the Tilly campus, damper control. They have met all the requirements and the specifications, and in fact, all the checklist items were performed and done in December of 2018. This is just a formality to close the contract. This is one of the aspects that I would like to probably see down the road, whether that is an opportunity for the commission to delegate authority to close the contract, because this is, again, a procedural step. There is no money involved. We're just closing the contract, and the staff has already crossed the T's and dotted all the I's just to make sure everything has been met. So,
Okay.
and again, as it is right now, you need to take an action as a commission to close the contract.
All right, anything? Yeah.
A couple of years ago, we had a issue with the HVAC system down at the Tilly Road campus, and it had to do with, I want to say, flies or something that were living in the system.
That's exactly what it fixed, this contract.
And has that
Flies?
been completely taken care of? And the reason I'm asking about the timing here is because we might not know if it's been completely taken care of until warmer times come, like in May
The
or
flies return.
June. So
Well, but it's-
if we close this out ahead of time, and then we find out we still have the problem in that we won't know about between now and June, do we have to do this now versus can we wait?
So there's a little bit different. And what we're talking about here is contract performance. In contract performance is we have issued a contract that is specifically said what a contractor needs to do. So we own the specifications of the contract, and we own whether what we put in that contract, whether it's flaps or screens or everything, we own that effectiveness of those projects. So the contractor really didn't come in here to solve the fly issue.
Okay.
The contractor came in here to meet the specifications of the contract that we issued. And that is what we're talking about in this case.
So I need to talk to somebody else if the problem didn't get solved.
So I think the
besides-
director uses the office. I can probably give you my old history of those flies, but I don't know if Jennifer has seen an improvement on that.
Well, for the benefit of Commissioner Menser, revisit the fly.
I need to hear about this fly issue.
Fly.
Did you say you need to or you don't?
I need to.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. And I'll give you my 2 cents after she's done.
Jennifer Walker, Public Works Director. It has significantly improved. So when I started in October of 2017, there were flies and bees and ladybugs. And I still have a few of those, but it is significantly better than what it was. So I would have to put covers over my cups and water
Oh, good
bottles.
grief.
And I actually called Romero one evening asking for hazard pay because I almost swallowed a fly and had to spit it back out. So,
There's a song about that.
yes, actually I have a book that somebody got me too. So, but it has gotten
Oh,
a
my
lot
goodness.
better.
You know, it
Yeah.
really may sound funny, but
Terrible.
when I got in there, I just couldn't understand where all these big flies were
Yeah.
come from. Well, you know, behind the Tilly campus, there is a large farm,
Yeah.
and they use organic fertilizer. And during the spring, summer, and fall, that's when they're heavy on their use of organic fertilizer, as you can probably attest where that comes from. That's when they were not little flies. They were the size of bees, if not larger.
And they crawl on your paper, on your desk.
And all of a
and
sudden, you know, you were working on your desk, and
they just drop.
drop. They just drop. And probably not, at least from when I was there, on a daily basis, I probably had close to 50
I was
flies.
going to say 50, yes.
And I have to sweep them every day. So
So now it's more maybe
it
like
appears that
5.
has
I mean,
been
it's
addressed.
significant.
Okay, that was my concern.
Are we working to zero, target zero? Because that's unacceptable, to have flies in your office.
Well, that will be an unrealistic goal, Commissioner.
0.
0.
I'm not sure I've ever had a fly in my office.
But that's what this contract was connected to, trying to.
Yeah, and it was
Manage that
assisting the
problem.
HVAC and putting some screens and flaps on the intake.
I get you a splash or a splatter screen that you for
We have
cooking.
one of those little vacuums where you take
Okay,
they just
wow.
drop.
And this item is aligned to initiative number 16 of the Thurston County Strategic Plan.
Probably a lot of strategic initiatives it's tied to.
That's right.
That was Central Services agenda item A. This is letter B now. Acceptance of the Facilities Engineering Project, Capital Campus Security.
Similar to the previous one, is an action that you may consider taking to close the contract, and this related to the security improvements here at the courthouse. You may recall there was a lot of cameras installed and some of access and a specific doors. So that contract is completed, and the staff is requesting for you to close that.
Okay.
But again, I'd like to explore the option that you may consider delegating that authority down the road.
All right, anything?
I guess all parties concerned that were concerned about this issue, do they have an opportunity to buy off on the acceptance that it was done right and it's working right, so we don't hear about it 6 months from now and the contract's already closed out?
I cannot guarantee that you will not hear any feedback, Commissioner. The only thing I can tell you is that the contractor has met all the requirements and all the specifications outlined in the contract itself.
But at the satisfaction of the users? or-
Well, the users were involved in the design, and the users were involved in the location of the cameras. Also, the users suggested additional cameras that which we included in the contract as well. So they were involved in the process at the beginning, and I believe, and again, I cannot guarantee whether you.
No,
will-
but I guess my concern is that the users did have some input at, I don't know, exit interview or
They-
something that says that, hey, we're done with this project, and ask them, did we meet your requirements? And maybe that's not possible. I don't know the answer to that, but I like to get input from affected parties, mainly because on contractual things, we seem to be unable to go back if there is a deficiency, and that's my concern. That's all.
Robin, go ahead.
So I think you have the ability that things that we accept, most of the things that we accept under contract come with a warranty period. If what the contractor has installed is not working correctly, we can go back for a certain amount of time. And I think though what you're talking about is a little different. Are the end users happy with what we got? That's different than did the contractor fulfill the specifications of his contract, as Romero was saying earlier. And I think that there are going to be times when we involved offices and departments in the design of a project, executed the project perfectly according to design, and in the end they're still not happy with what we put in, which has nothing to do with if the contractor completed their work.
Which is managing expectations.
Yeah, and I will venture to say the answer to reach a end user full satisfaction or high satisfaction will be a new courthouse. And that has been stated very clear from the beginning.
They're not going to be happy with anything we do in this particular area until we've moved.
Well, I'd guess that's a whole nother topic, but probably not for this time frame, I suppose.
No, and again, like you say, it's managing expectations.
Okay.
Because we can't afford to bring it up to speed to satisfy everybody at the county at this point.
But I guess whether we could have done more in this contract, absolutely. There's always more that we can do in any contract.
Right.
But also it's a finite amount of money that we need to do and do the best that we can with the revenues that we have.
I guess my concern is just within the specifications of the contract, if they would acknowledge that that part of it is done, rather than leave them out in the cold on the whole. I hear oftentimes that people are left out of the decision-making process. So that's all I'm asking.
But this is not the decision-making. It
No,
is for us to release funds because all the legal requirements have been met.
But just to make sure if part of the contract was a camera in a certain location that did a certain thing, and then we get contacted 2 months later that, well, they didn't put that in, or that camera never did work, or that's all I'm asking.
That's on the project manager to
Right.
ensure that
Yeah,
all
yes.
of everything that was put
And
in
I'm
is
hoping that
working.
he's consulting the end user, that's all I'm
And
asking.
Janice will be on this.
You don't even need an end user to test that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But also, it goes back to Commissioner Hutchins' statement, managing expectations. Because I do have to say, when this project was in the initial stages, and we reach out to all the different stakeholders, they did have this large magnitude of
They wanted
requests. So no doubt in my mind, perhaps you're going to hear some of the users that perhaps they didn't get what they suggested
Oh,
at
sure.
the beginning.
Very
We
possible.
only have this much money.
And we also had that authority of this much, so we just needed to strike the right balance between managing the expectations based on the available funding.
And we talked to the stakeholders about their priorities. Since they want this much and we only have this much, what should we do first? We definitely had conversations about
Okay.
that.
All right. So with that, then we'll move to the commissioners and the county managers items, and we have nothing to report on that yet, I wouldn't imagine.
Not yet.
And then we will adjourn next Tuesday's BoCC and move into the Transportation Benefit District. And so I'll turn this over to President Ty Menser.
All right. This is our very first Transportation Benefit District agenda. So at 3:30, we would call to order, approve this agenda, and approve meeting minutes from November 20th. which I wasn't there, but you guys can approve those.
Yeah, at that point, you may excuse yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Opportunity for public to address the board is item 2. And then we would move to item 3, department items, of which there are 5. The first is Public Works, and it simply says ratify election of TBD officers for 2019. I know we covered this in January.
Right, the
but-
assignment was done, but under the TBD, you need to take a formal action similar to what you did on the Board of Health.
Okay. All right, that seems straightforward. Any comments there?
Yeah. No.
Good.
Okay, item 2B, or 3B, second item, is 2018 Thurston County TBD Annual Report.
So this would be, each year, we're required to do a report as to what has been done for the TBD, and so we'll report out on our activities, any expenses. It's not a funded program at this time, so any costs that are incurred have been paid and banked, and they'll be reimbursed by the TBD when it gets funded.
Is this a written report?
It is.
Okay, and we haven't seen it yet?
It
Or-
has been posted, but we will have copies for you.
Okay. Questions about that?
Nope.
Okay. Third item, presentation of Public Works Transportation System, 2018 accomplishments and 2019 planned projects.
Yes, so we'll highlight for Thurston County Transportation System the projects that we completed for 2018 and then what we have planned for 2019. Separate from, these are not funded by the Transportation Benefit District, but just for Thurston County's transportation system funded by the county through grants and the road fund.
The connection being that what we might want to do as a benefit district would be informed by what is being done.
Correct. So we're trying to take a different approach for the TBD meeting. So in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of discussion about what the TBD can do, how it can be funded. Last year, we went through and did community outreach and did a survey and got feedback as to what the citizens of Thurston County valued and if they would be willing to fund. And so we're taking a step back and saying, okay, well, let's talk about just transportation. So we're going to, at the next item, we're having Karen Parkhurst from TRPC come in and talk about transportation at a regional level. And so just trying to focus on, it's more than, yes, I mean, the TBD is a tool for the county to use, but here's the larger context, here's the why, here's what we're talking about at a higher level, a bigger picture.
Okay. So then item D, presentation by TRPC, State of Regional Transportation System, which you just covered.
Yes.
And Karen Parkhurst, you said, will be
Correct.
the guest?
Yes.
Any questions about that?
No.
No.
Okay. And then finally, we've got director's report.
Yes, and so I'll highlight some of the additional programs that we have scheduled throughout the year, get additional feedback from you if there's other things that you'd like to hear about, and set us up for 2019.
There was, go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
No, just for that upcoming director's report, could you include in there where this initiative is that Tim Hyman is proposing, something to do with $30 license tabs, what impact that might have if it in fact was to pass by the voters, and when is that going to be, in August or is that in November? Is it even going to be on the ballot? Maybe what the legislature has come up with, I don't know if you call it to counter or instead of, I don't know exactly where it's at, so maybe
Yes.
you could just fill us in on that.
Be happy to. There's a lot there's a lot in there.
Yeah, and maybe you won't have all that information yet. I don't know. I'm just asking because I don't know.
Yes.
So I will, like, I've seen a couple online a couple of TBD. I've
Yes.
seen the presentation on what the possible projects might look like if it were funded. I've seen a presentation on the public outreach results, so I kind of looked at all that. And I'll take a look at the November minutes, which I haven't done yet, but I will.
Okay.
But, and this question's for either you guys or Ms. Walker. Is there like a state of the Dem Benefit District, like of where things were left as of last fall in terms of a decision by the board that we're gonna, is it still up in the air whether we're gonna pursue funding? Is it just something that that previous board decided not to do, or were things kind of left? If anyone is willing to, so it's kind of, everything's still up in the air.
It's on
That's kind of
pause.
the sense I got from seeing things online, but thought I'd ask you guys directly.
Yeah, it was discussed, and without getting too much into the details, it was a different perspectives from the past commission on that particular effort. And carrying on to 2019, that will be something else that you may consider as you conduct business in 2019 for the TBD.
Because you might remember, I think it was like the first week I was on the board, a citizen was waving around a statute saying, if we're not funded, if we're not doing anything, we can't exist. And I can't remember if any of us ever
Yeah,
like.
it was, I believe Mr. Pettit has made that
I think
argument
that
for
was
the
right.
last couple of years. And, but I believe there is, the TBD exists because the need exists. And when you get through the process of looking into the 2020 budget coming up later in the year, you will see how much road diversion is coming to the general fund. And right now we have close to $4 million. So what it does is the commissioners have approved transferring or diverting through two different methods, and we'll get to the details when that time comes as to what those methods are allowed by law. Those are allowed by law. They amounts to $4 million. So the result of that is reducing the capacity of the road fund to do projects and continue to support the road system. So within the whole context, when staff is going to continue to have the conversation with the TBD board during this year, I will encourage you to look from that perspective globally as to what is perhaps the obligation the U.S. Board of County Commissioners as well as the Transportation Benefit District have, not just to address the current need of the road system, but the long-lasting consequences. And the sustainability of the road fund is going to be essential, because at this point, if we continue with the $4 million diversion, the road fund is going to go into the red in the next 4 years. When it goes into the red, then the only thing that we can do is reduce services. So our level of services will be reduced no matter what if nothing changes based on the current conditions. And I'm here not to encourage for you to consider any funding strategies. I'm here to just give you what the current status is of the road fund.
So what I'm hearing, to answer my question, is the consensus was to keep that option available to us because we might need to look at it at a later point, even though nobody's, okay, I got it, thank you. So that's director's report. Anything else there? And then we would adjourn.
All right. We've been at this for 68 minutes. We're going to take a recess, being cognizant of staff. And we'll take 10 minutes and be right back. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, welcome back. It is still March 12th, 2019. We're continuing on with the work session. And the next thing on the agenda is proclamations and awards. And where am I turning to?
You're turning to me.
To Whitney Pearsall.
Yep. So you don't have any proclamations for today. We did get a request from, I think it was United Way, for declaring National Service Recognition Day 2018 on April 2nd. And this is, you did do this last year, so.
Is this what you've got here in the email?
That's the email?
Yeah.
Okay. National Service Recognition Day. We did it last year, and we don't have it currently slated to do it this year?
I think we do. I don't know if you've gone through for the month of April yet, reviewed the,
It's on it's on the list here.
yeah.
Okay.
So there's also a list for all of the proclamations that you did in April.
So it'll come forward again then, I
Yeah.
would imagine, okay. So that's proclamations and no awards that we're
Yeah.
anticipating, okay. Good, thank you. And then advisory boards and commissions.
I don't have anything for that this week.
I do.
Okay.
We have the one opening for the planning commission, and Don DeHaan was on there. He was an applicant from about 6 months ago, and I've left 3 or 4 phone calls with messages, and I have not heard anything back from him yet. And since I know his son, I'll probably reach out to him and see if Dad's on vacation
I think that's what's going
or
on.
what the heck is going on, because I haven't heard back from him, and that's not like him.
What's his name?
That's Don, I believe, Don DeHaan, or DeHaan rather, D-E-H-A-N. He applied for this position last year, about 6 months ago or so, and we didn't have an opening at the time. So it's just been sitting on hold, and it's for District Number 1. So I thought I'd reach out to him and see if he's still interested. But that's all I have. I have his application, but I'll get a copy for you. Or do you have the applications?
I'm sure.
Brittany?
Yeah.
Okay. You make sure my seatmates get one? Thank you. All right. PIO check-in, let's move that down to, I'm kidding.
Can I ask one
Yes.
question? This is not, maybe not related that well, but when it comes to boards and commissions, we have seats that we appoint to the Housing Authority Board, is that correct?
You make an appointment.
And are those terms, they have terms, or?
I am not sure what the term limits are.
It's
on
not
those
usually
appointments.
listed on our normal sheet, that's why I'm asking. If there's a place I can just go look, I'll do it myself, but
We'll follow up, and if you like, we can probably bring that information next Tuesday. Would
just
that
curious
work?
what the status is, thanks.
Question? All right, Megan Porter, PIO.
Based on our conversation, I'm here for you to tell me what you would like us to do.
I knew this would happen. Because we had that conversation.
I'm
and-
trying to remember the specifics.
And more of a dialogue rather than just spitting out stats and
Yeah.
such. That would be what are our expectations, what is of interest to us, that you can help facilitate our need and get the
Yes.
word out, however that be, whether it be a video, whether it be an article, whether it be a press release, whatever.
Yep.
So now I'm going to turn to my seatmates and ask for their input to you, or for you, on what is interest to you. I bet you have something.
Yes, I do. I just want to point out that I think they're doing an extremely good job, and I'm looking forward to having this dialogue in the future when the need arises, but I think they're headed in the right direction, and everything seems to be going pretty well. I certainly don't have any criticism.
I just reviewed the Thurston County Connections, which featured myself and Alice, mostly Allison, but I thought that was pretty good. I mean, it was very substantive.
Okay, good.
But was there anything about that
Brian didn't comment if there was any issue. I mean, obviously, having to reschedule around the snow was hard, but.
yeah, and so we broke it into two, and we're going to do the second part, which will be a little more interactive for me. I'll be
Yes.
interviewing 2 different people, following up kind of on the technical overview that Allison gave on the part 1. So I think they'll work pretty well in combination.
Yeah, and he posted it and we received a comment, oh, this is great, thanks for sharing. So we've gotten that so far, that people have watched it, so that's great.
And we've had a lot of trouble with the snow and the scheduling with Nisqually representative that's going to be part of it. So we're getting there. I think Friday we're going to finish the taping.
Good. Now, without getting into stats, of course, and without getting into our schedules, the things that we have scheduled with Brian, with TCM and such, you and Brian were exceedingly busy doing all that community outreach over the project, the courthouse project.
Yes.
Very busy. You're not done with that. You're done with the outreach piece of it, I imagine. But what are you doing? Do you have a schedule of events that you're doing now to help get the word out?
Well, right now, they're going to be launching the, Elway is going to be launching the survey. And so the letter, I believe, is going out today or tomorrow for people requesting to do the online survey. And then they're going to be doing the telephone survey starting next week. So some citizens may get contacted by Elway. We are not conducting that survey. No. Elway is, we won't get individual responses. We'll get a report back from Elway. And it's really just asking citizens if they understand that there's a need.
And will we get this, what, in a month or 2 weeks?
Early
or?
April.
It's early
It's
April.
expected early April. I believe the preliminary is the first week of April.
And maybe addressing Commissioner Hutchins' question, I think any type of outreach will be extremely factual.
Yep.
It will be informational about the effort in the project, and that will be the constraints the staff will have, including myself. Similar
So-
to what we've done to the cities of Tumwater and Lacey. You participated with the city of Lacey briefing last week. That will be just about that context, a very factual approach to the project.
So with that in mind, because we don't want to broach or breach any ethical boundaries, are we allowed or permitted to put out anywhere that you may or may not be contacted by Elway, and this is what it's about? Or not promoting it, but just saying if you get a call, or if you get whatever, or you can, just information-wise.
So-
But again, spelling out it's not the county doing this, it's an independent contractor doing this.
No.
Consultant.
And in fact, I wrote a letter, and that is the cover letter for all the citizens. It is under my signature, encouraging them to participate in the survey.
Okay.
And so that is part of the process. So if anybody has any questions related to the survey, they can certainly contact me.
Okay, and that letter went where?
It went along with the survey as an introductory letter
good,
to
okay.
all the citizens who want to participate.
So they're mailing out to a select
Yeah.
random sampling of citizens the letter to participate in the questionnaire. And then they're also calling for 500 responses from a very scientifically valid selection of people. So this will be a scientifically valid survey.
Got it, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that answers my question. That letter answers my question, and your information too. Is there anything you expect or want or need from us?
Not at this time. I did want to let you know that I have been talking with Public Health and with City of Olympia about the point-in-time numbers, and they still haven't gotten necessarily a timeline of when they're going to get those back from Commerce. So I'm still waiting on
So
that, but I'm working on it.
It routes through the state.
Yeah,
All right.
but I
Okay.
am in touch with City of Olympia, so.
Anything further? Oh, yes, Romero. Thank you.
Just looking at the upcoming events that you may consider having somewhat of a media outreach. On Friday, we have a meeting with the Squaxin Island Tribe, and that is again an opportunity to have a conversation with them. One of the items that I suggested to have a conversation will be on the fish barrier passage and the coordination with the Squaxin Island Tribe. So if you have any particular items that you would like to discuss, please let me know. And I think that might be a good opportunity, I guess, Megan, to participate in the luncheon and maybe just have somewhat of continue to highlight the coordination efforts the commission has with not just the Squaxin Island Tribe, but with others. Also, we're trying to coordinate a follow-up meeting with the Hills Tribe and also with the Nisqually Tribe. The Nisqually Tribe seems to be a little bit of a challenge just to get some coordination going, but we will continue to do that as well.
Yeah.
Also looking up at the schedule, I'm trying to have a joint meeting between the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners and the Pierce County Council, as well as the executive. And that was an idea that came with the chief of staff, that I had a meeting with the chief of staff late December as to how we can start coordinating those efforts. And really the gist of this is just to start looking regionally some of the common items that we have, particularly with Pierce County. And also, that becomes a challenge as well, but when we get to the point, that will be a good opportunity to highlight in terms of the news releases that you may consider. And also, I really would like to have, when we get to the point later in the year, to have a tabletop exercise with the elected officials with Pierce County. And that goes on the heels of the trail derailment that we had not this past December, the December before 2017. There was really not just about the communication, but also the coordination among elected officials that we faced. Perhaps there was an opportunity to overcome those gaps. So those may be something you may consider in terms of highlighting, some news releases or public outreach. So.
I'm glad, thank you very much for that. That would be fun to meet with the Pierce County contemporaries. But I had in my notes to ask about Squaxin Island for this Friday. And so I'm glad you brought that up. Will you be attending, or do you know?
I'll be attending.
Beautiful, good. Thank you for that.
Where are we having that at?
That is located, let me
Anthony's,
give
I
you the specific location, is Anthony's Home Port. They have a meeting room in the back that we have used in the past. As you may recall, you were not here,
We were
but
just there, weren't we?
the time before, they hosted lunch, so in this case, the county will host lunch.
This is where the reception was for the Port of Olympia Executive Director, CEO.
That's
Yeah,
next door, right next to that.
Yeah.
I
Same place.
did not attend that meeting, so.
Okay. Thank you. Did you get what you needed?
Did you?
You're very welcome.
Good.
What about the banana cake? I didn't hear anything about that.
There's the banana bread in that bread.
Okay.
Is it yours?
It's mine.
Very good.
Okay, I'm always dodgy if
No
somebody
nuts.
just brings it in.
There's no nuts in it. So
Very
don't
good.
worry.
All right, now we're moving into public hearing decisions pending.
There is nothing pending on your decisions, Commissioner.
Okay, legislative update.
Yeah. I'm going to go through this report. This is summary. There's a lot of information as a background, but let me walk you through, just continue with the same process. House Bill 1718, that's related to flexibility to counties. And
Is that the old 2006?
yeah, that's the old
Okay.
2006. That is moving forward, and in fact has been scheduled for a second reading on the Rules Committee. And just to give you a perspective as to what this bill does, is allows jurisdictions to use revenue, generate existing revenue. It doesn't give us additional options for revenue. It will allow us for flexibility with the current revenue that we have, which includes using the levy left to supplant some existing funds. The supplanting aspects for counties are very restrictive. So this bill is attempting to give us more flexibility within that context. Also establishes a different funding for the disability, mental health, and also the veterans assistance programs. So last year, we made a brief assessment, as I mentioned to you last week. The positive impact of this bill to the county will be in the order of $900,000 to the general fund. So it's a good bill. And it seems to be there's bipartisan support, and hopefully we'll continue on through the process, and eventually we'll get to the House floor for vote. Any questions on that? Okay. So please stop me if I... House Bill 1598 and Senate Bill 5522, that's related to annexations islands. And this is related to the interlocal agreements. And Representative W has been a champion for this agreement, and that was a result of the meeting that we had with her at the beginning of the session. There has been a couple of changes, suggestions and amendments. Those have been acceptable, but both by the county, the city, and other counties and cities across the state. And there is a hope that perhaps this bill will be on the floor, the House floor, for about today. So, and again, either way, if the bill passes or not, I think I will encourage you to call Representative Dalio and thank her for really the pioneering champion in this bill. House Bill 1357, Senate Bill 5249. This is the other bill related to annexations, and this is related to the 45-day referendum. That was the initial bill introduced by the city of Lacey. This bill is dead.
So wasn't Representative Dolio also promoting that bill?
Right.
Okay. So she was behind both, but one of them's dead, one of them's moving forward. All right.
House Bill 2022 does the fish barrier removal funding. This bill, what it does, establishes a fish barrier removal board, and it really allows to do twofold. Get access to additional funding, and right now the potential funding will come from the Public Works Trust Fund, and also what allows to have a coordination with property owners as to how we can start addressing fish barrier passages on private property, because at this point we don't have that ability. It also allows to have a larger coordination with the state mandate, DOT, the Department of Transportation. They have to resolve some of their fish barrier passage on state highways.
You say it allows for a board. Does it allow it or does it require it?
Well, allows to the creation of this board, and that's what this bill does.
Okay.
I guess, follow up?
Go ahead, yeah, just jump in.
Are you keeping track of this as far as the process, if it should pass, how we could be represented on that board?
I have not seen what the makeup of the board is yet. So,
I guess where I'm going with that is we've done more than just talk about this problem.
right.
So
Certainly,
for the last couple of
lead.
years,
Yeah.
we're leading this issue.
lead the state.
And I would like to see that we also have, because we've taken that initial initiative, that we maybe end up with some representation on that board in some fashion or another.
yeah, certainly we can
should be
look
on
for
that.
those opportunities. Yeah. House Bill 5190 does the option of doing a consumatic sales tax increase 1/10% related to affordable housing. And as you know, right now, that option is going to the voters. This particular bill gives you a consummated action, meaning Board of Commissioners or councils can act on that. And that has already been referred to for a second reading at the Rules Committee. You heard House Bill 1497, this foundational public health. You heard that earlier from your Director of Public Health and Social Services. It passed the House. Right now it has no funding associated with this particular passage. They were looking for potential revenues. And just to let you know that this bill could pass even the Senate with no funding. So I don't know what the consequences of that will be.
So it is
Yeah.
not at all unusual for a bill to have any funding stripped out of the bill itself, and then the funding goes into the budget, if there's going to be funding. They absolutely can pass a bill with no funding going into the budget, but it's rare to see the funding in the bill.
So they will continue to do that. And there may be an option. They could be probably considered to be what they call an anti-IB, necessary to implement the budget, but that may be a higher threshold based on the dollar amount.
So you only need to do that if the bill has died somewhere along the way. You think a bill is dead, and all of a sudden it's designated as necessary to implement the budget, and it becomes live again.
It's a miracle.
So it's a zombie bill.
Yeah.
But this bill appears to be moving, so it wouldn't need that
Yeah, but
designation.
there's always might be an option if it gets a hurdle.
Yeah.
Because what I have not seen is the Senate bill, a companion bill. I have not been able to.
Doesn't matter if this is moving.
Do they call those dead bills coming back a Lazarus, or do they call them zombie bills?
Nah, not
That's
really.
just, okay.
They just call
The
them
Robinism.
That's the
bills
Robin.
Yeah, it is,
necessary.
yeah.
I think it's a Michelleism. They call them bills necessary to implement the budget.
Okay.
That's their formal.
House Bill 1771, that's related to the Welcome Washington Baby Act. This particular bill has been referred to appropriations, if looking for discussion on the funding. House Bill 1074 and Senate Bill 5057. This is raises the age of to 21 to purchase tobacco and vaping products. And this bill has been referred for the Ways and Means Committee. Senate House Bill 1087 and Companion Bill 5331. This is related to the Trust Fund for Healthcare for employees. That's retirement, for retired employees, to create a somewhat of a trust fund to cover their health cost after retirement. And this particular bill has been referred for a public hearing for March 15, I think that's Friday. Thursday, somewhere. House Bill 5163 and Senate Bill 5163 and House Bill 1135. That's the wrongful death. As you know, that one, it keeps moving along, and has been referred to the Rights and Fiduciary Committee. So attached to your packet, there is a letter, and has this title. And there's a lot of explanation, but I'd like you to probably focus on a couple of tables. One table located in page number 4. And that is probably what is the impact of this particular bill they could have in terms of paying liability. So currently, it gives you from the statute of the current statute. Let me read you through in that table. Said the change in severity is 0. Number of claims back in 2017, 2017 data. It's an average claim of 670,000. Total claims on that year was 13,735,000.
Across the whole state?
As an average,
Okay.
yeah, as an average. So then, if Senate Bill 5163 passes, let's say if the change in severity does not change, it does have an effect. All of a sudden, the number of claims will rise to 31.8. Assuming the average claim will be about the same, $670,000. But based on the increase on the claims, then we will see $21,289,000, or thereabouts, an increase of $7 million of impact. If we assume a 20% increase, and you can probably read right across, the total impact will be an additional close to $12 million. And if the Senate bill passes, in assuming a 30% increase, then we might probably see an average of an additional $13,941,000. So that's really what this letter does, is gives an explanation as to what this bill could have in terms of liability payments. You know, we participate on the risk pool along with many other counties. So if those projections become a reality, what is going to happen is, you know, our rates will go up, and that's really the consequence, because we're covered under this insurance. We have a maximum, minimum, and we have a down payment, all that. But at the end of the day, if the claims are higher, we, the county, among other counties within the risk pool, may see their rates going up. That's really the end result of this potential bill.
And the amounts indicated here do not increase, or do not take into account the cost to defend
So
the claim.
So that's just to give you a sense of magnitude. That's all it is.
And this is an estimated average per county?
I asked if it was the whole state. You're-
That-
No,
Now
it's
you're
an
saying
average
it's
per
per
county.
county?
An average per county, I'm sorry, it's an average per
Statewide.
county.
Okay, well, that's not very useful because the counties are wildly different in size.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, quite a few more King County cases than.
We're in the upper half, right, of population,
But,
so.
but still,
doesn't
you know, the
clearly
impact,
state.
I mean, in terms of impacts and percentages, the impact
Yeah,
is
the percentage is useful.
baseline
Yeah.
the same, you know?
It
I
could be
think this is just.
doubling our expenses.
Yeah,
and that.
this is just giving you a sense of magnitude.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not suggesting this will be a reality, but a sense of magnitude as to what this potential bill could have an impact. And again, the impact is, we will not be seeing this, they will have to pay an additional $7 million or whatever. It's really, is the risk pool, they probably have to deal with this, and as the tail end, our rates will go up.
If the risk pool should choose to cover, I
Right.
mean, we may
Yeah, you may not.
be in a
Yeah.
situation where the risk pool chooses that this is something that they don't cover. We have expenses that the risk pool does not.
And I think what, even having a conversation, obviously the WASAC is opposing to that, and
Yeah, but
I
the-
believe we also oppose this as a county. And what I think is difficult is to make a formal opposition when the stories behind that and testimony in front of the committees are so heart-wrenching. And how you can argue with their personal stories, how you can argue against their personal experiences related to somebody's families who has passed in a wrongful death. So that becomes extremely difficult, and I think this letter is attempted to look at the business impacts a little more objective as to what this bill could do. But apparently, this bill has legs and continues through the process.
So I see on the website that the Senate bill in particular is the one that appears to be moving. It is sitting in the House Civil Rights and Judiciary Committee. And all amendments that were brought to the floor of the Senate when it passed out were not adopted. So it's moving. There is a substitute bill from the original, but
Okay.
I think it's
Is that
possible
listed
we're
under?
gonna have to figure it out.
Is that listed under 5163?
5163 is the one that is, got legs.
Anywho, moving on to, and I combined those three bills related to potential local government infrastructure funding. House Bill 1441 related to bonds. We provide the local jurisdictional flexibility on issuing the bonds. House Bill 1680. That is a little bit related to the 4.1% of real estate excise tax that currently goes to the Education Legacy Trust Fund. And the proposed bill eliminates that transfer by the end of 2019, and the 4.1% of the REIT will go back to the Public Works Trust Fund to help local governments on public infrastructure funding. The Public Works Trust Fund has been, for years, if not decades, a good source for low interest rates for local governments to build infrastructure. And a very, very effective program. Back in 2017, and the biennial budget, the legislature totally cleaned that fund. The Public Works Trust Fund exists as a board, but doesn't have any funding. There's a couple of attempts to restore that because there is a lot of need, particularly for smaller jurisdictions, smaller local governments. They don't have access, or they don't have the means to issue a larger contract, but at least they can probably build their water systems, sewer system, or perhaps small transportation projects, and they can pay that over time with a very small interest rate. So this is encouraging.
So this restores REIT back to Public Works?
Yeah.
And is it designated to be used for roads or transportation?
Yeah, yeah, but we need to apply.
Uh-huh.
We need to apply, and we need to pay this because it's a loan.
It's a
It's not a
loan.
grant.
Okay, thank you.
Public Works does loans.
Yeah.
Although I
Thank you,
would
thank
say
you.
that only 1441 has made it to the floor. The other
Yeah.
two are
Okay.
stuck in approps.
Yeah, and the House Bill 1680, the REIT, it could be considered as a
Absolutely
necessary
could.
to implement budget. So
Both of those.
because it's really it's not revenue. New revenue is just eliminate
All right.
the transfer. So yeah, House Bill 5812, that's related to affordable housing, and this related to allow the ADU development on the specific areas of the UGA. And I think that has been placed in the second reading. House Bill 1591, homelessness, and that is the bill, as you may recall, that was going to be very restrictive as to how we public buildings can be open for homelessness, for homeless, and the harassment definition of that was very restrictive. That bill is dead.
So 5812, just an update, passed last night off the floor.
Oh, there you go.
So it's-
That's a good deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Senate Bill 5644, affordable housing, and that's related to the allowing religious organizations to provide shelter. That bill is dead. The House Bill 1386 and Senate Bill 5571, that was related to the military benefit zone. As you may recall, that was a bill that allows within that radius of 2 miles of any military installation to have a military benefit zone that will allow us to access federal funding related to that. That bill is dead. The other bill, which is provided restrictions within the same area, which is House Bill 1628, restrictions as to how development can occur within the radius of the military installation. The bill is dead also. House Bill 1667 and Senate Bill 566 and Senate Bill 5667, 1667, 5667. That's for public records reporting. This bill provides a little bit of relief on the reporting requirements that we need to provide on a yearly basis to the Department of Commerce, I believe. And that bill is moving forward. It has bipartisan support. House Bill 5766 and Senate Bill 5766 and House Bill 1743, that's related to prevailing wages. Last year, the legislature passed every single contract should be exposed to prevailing wages. So as a result of that, any shelter, any affordable housing, anything related to those efforts should have been exposed to prevailing wages, which the cost of construction would have increased by at least 25%. This bill is trying to fix that. And to fix that in terms of taking all those related to affordable housing activities not to be exposed to prevailing wages. And that seems to be having a bipartisan support. And in fact, the level and industry just issued rulemaking that excludes landscaping activities from this requirement. And just to give you an example, landscaping activities, for somebody who was providing landscaping activities for those projects, on their prevailing wages would have to pay $50 an hour versus what we normally pay probably $15 an hour. And that is really the difference. The enable industry has already passed this rule and they exempt those activities. Hopefully this bill will move forward and will address the overall prevailing wages of the bill. Next page, House Bill 1345. That's the mandatory overtime for correction officers. The initial bill was putting some restrictions as to how overtime should be assigned in correction facilities to correction officers. through the amendment process, this bill is moving forward just as creating as a report. At this point, this is a good bill because it's going to be requiring all the counties to provide data related to assignment of mandatory overtime in correction facilities.
So I did check with Heidi Thompson, and it would be very difficult for us to provide the type of data that they are asking for. So I'm going to pass that on to Wasac.
Senate Bill 5272, that's related to the sales tax, the 1/10 of 1% for 911. There has been a lot of activity as of late on this particular bill. It passed the Senate bill, it's gone to the House, and before it's leading to the House, there is some proposed amendments to the bill. They are trying to eliminate some of the surcharge related to penalties on the property tax. And at this point, I think they're in the process of addressing those amendments today. So we'll see what happens. But it appears to have bipartisan support, but it all depends how that those amendments related to the penalties on the property tax will move forward. House Bill 1086 related to public defense funding, that's dead. House Bill 1711, creation of new counties, as you may recall, that's dead as well. In Senate Bill 5268, which is dealing with the county sheriff's salaries that was aligned to the judges or the prosecuting attorney, that bill was also dead. That's my report.
Wow.
We haven't heard from the auditor on how the election bills are faring. Have you?
Yeah, thank you. The one that is still alive is the prepaid ballots. And that it have moved off the Senate floor on March 5th with 42-3, so it passed. And the other one, I think is dead and related to the compensation of a general election bill. I don't think that's dead.
That's what I saw. So do you have a bill number on the one that's?
The prepaid ballots is the Senate Bill 5063.
Thank you.
All right, now we're moving into commissioner items. Low impact development, or LID, update. Come on up, Josh, please. Josh Cummings in the house. And Alice Osterberg. Yay.
Yeah, Commissioners, last week you asked the staff to give an update as to where we are on the low impact development and some of the proposed changes that you would like to see, particularly related to the percentage of the impervious surfaces. So staff is going to give you an update of that, and perhaps some next steps.
Thank you, County Manager Chavez. So you're receiving in your hand right now a handout from Allison Osterberg, who is the lead on this staff. Impervious surfaces within the LID, low impact development, part of our comprehensive plan. And so if you'll kind of go back in your mind to the discussion that we had when Jeremy Davis provided a briefing on the development code, we talked about the comprehensive plan docket as the vision, and then the action happens within our current planning group. And so Allison will go through some of the details, but what you'll see in this timeline is that the vision for impervious surfaces and LID was to create some consistency and flexibility for citizens throughout our county. And Allison will walk you through the timeline. But that vision that was provided as direction from the board was implemented in 2017, end of 2016 or so. Allison will talk about that. But what we realized during that period since 2017 is that there are places where we can help other citizens. So we had a community work group that came up with standards on consistency and flexibility, but we've been receiving anecdotal information within our current planning group. Remember, this is the action, not the vision, that there have been places where we can do better in terms of our impervious surface, the percentage, how we can be more flexible. And we've been receiving that information while at the same time our current planning group has been working with those citizens. I think the last time we talked about this, Commissioner Hutchings brought up one particular instance where there was a divided driveway. We've since recognized that our current planning group was able to address that in a positive way and find a path forward. And so we have a number of those issues. So what we want to do is ensure that you, as the commissioners, understand that in terms of the vision for LID and the impervious surface, we'll accept your direction if you'd like to take an opportunity to revisit that in terms of the comp plan, which will be coming to you in terms of the docketing process in April sometime. We're working on finding a date for that discussion. And we're open to receiving that information. So the high level is, we created consistency and flexibility in 2016. We've been accepting information on how we can do better. And if you'd like us to revisit the vision and create more action within the vision, that's coming to you in April. And we're accepting that information now. And Allison will talk more about the development code docket and the comprehensive plan docket and how all these details work in. But just wanted to make sure you guys knew that we need your help if you'd like us to look at the vision again on impervious surface and specifically what you'd like us to look at. And we'll accept that information and your direction.
Are you ready for that now?
I think maybe let's have Allison provide some
Okay.
details, or if you'd like.
No,
Vision,
go ahead.
that's great.
Yeah, go ahead, Allison.
Well, I'll keep this brief. This is just going to fall over on me. Yeah. Allison Osterberg, Senior Planner with CPED. And for the benefit of Commissioner Menser, who wasn't, actually, I think we completed this code update before any of you were commissioners, but Commissioner Hutchings and Commissioner Edwards have received a few updated briefings on this update. But just for background, from about 2014 to 2016, the county reviewed its development codes, and we came up with a series of updates, changes that we made to the development code, and this was to encourage a low-impact development. This is a requirement under our state stormwater permit, the MPDES permit. There's a requirement from the state under the Department of Ecology that all jurisdictions that are under that permit review their codes, and what they said is you need to make sure that your standards are set in such a way that low-impact development should become the standard of doing business and doing construction. And there are really three ways that they look to us to say, how have you decreased new impervious surfaces, because that leads to more stormwater runoff into our streams and water quality issues, water flow issues. How have you ensured more retention of native vegetation, so trees and other vegetation on a site, which helps kind of retain the way water is managed on the site? And then how have you reduced overall stormwater runoff with your rules? We had a really great process with a lot of public input from 2014 to 2016. We had a community work group that involved a lot of folks in the community. We had representatives both from the development industry, so OMB, BIAW, a lot of individual contractors, landscaping contractors, building contractors were on that group. The Olympia Master Builders and the Building Industry Association of Washington.
Not the Ole Mountain Boys, just to be clear.
We may have had, we had a lot of people on that group. They certainly would have been welcome.
I know most of the public thinks OMB means that.
That's true. Yeah, we should always clarify that acronym. And we also had representatives from the environmental community and FutureWise and a lot of different perspectives on that group. And what we did in working with that group is we came to them and said, we've allowed low impact development for a long time. There's a feeling that it's not happening enough. How can you, in your industries, you're the ones who are working on these types of things, what would allow you to do this type of development? And that's what we had heard. We need the rules to be consistent, but we want to allow for some flexibility. It's very important with low impact development design because every site is different. And so how do you so what we really tried to do is to toe that line for having rules that would be consistent for people, but that also allowed for, and that were protective of our water resources and did what we needed to do under state law, but that allowed for more creativity for individual people proposing projects. And one of the outcomes from that, there were a lot of changes we made, but what we're mainly talking about here today is we established consistent hard surface limits for all of our zoning districts. Before that, we had impervious limits for some of the zoning districts. We had building coverage limits. They were really strange thresholds that could be really inequitable for different people, and some didn't have anything at all. And so we established consistent ones, and they're kind of like they were more protective, but then we created a credit system to allow more flexibility. We said at a base scale, we want you to limit just as the state asked us to do, limit the amount of new impervious surfaces. But if you do things on your site that we think are beneficial for water resources by retaining vegetation or restoring degraded areas, or doing types of design that were more good for stormwater, you could get credit to do more. And so those have been in place since the end of 2016. That was our deadline, and they've been working really well. What we have identified and in talking with our planning staff, is that for lots that are kind of smaller than 2.5 acres, so especially lots that are between 1 acre and 2.5 acres, that's where we're seeing some difficulties with implementation. And that's because when we wrote these rules, we were thinking more of larger developments and allowing more flexibility on large sites. And so when we created those credits, we didn't make them available to the smaller lots, thinking that they wouldn't apply there. But in reality, in Thurston County, what we know is we have a lot of, for instance, you might be in a 1 to 5 zoning district, but you're a 1 acre lot or a 2 acre lot. And so there's a legacy of development that's on that site. In many cases, a long driveway, for example, or you might have already, before the current property owner, it might have been developed in a way where there was a lot of hard surfaces on the site. And so we have identified a list of changes we could make to the code that would be more accommodating for those sites, that would acknowledge those situations that are on the ground. And really when I've talked with staff about many individual situations, and talked with commissioner staff as well when they've heard from constituents, this is the bulk of what it's boiled down to. It's these smaller lots that are bumping up against their impervious or their hard surface limit. And if we allow for the flexibility that we allow for larger lots to these lots, it would address many of the concerns. So we've done some things administratively to work with folks individually as they come in, but we've identified some changes we would need to make to the code to kind of finesse and improve the changes that we made in 2016. And we have those identified. What we'd be looking for the board, if you want to make those changes, is we would be looking for you to put that on the development code docket, and update to those rules, especially to address those smaller lots, and to prioritize it as an item on the development code docket.
And that will be coming to you on March 20th. That's going to be Jeremy and/or Cindy providing that list of items for your prioritization. And I'd also just add that the rules that were applied at the end of 2016 to now have helped a number of the citizens that have come in and applied for their different permits in terms of this creativity and flexibility and consistency. Often we don't hear from the folks that it worked good for. We only hear from the folks that need help, which is acceptable and appreciated. But thinking in terms of scope of how the positive impact may be not fully understood, given that we usually only hear from folks that need assistance.
So at the
we're
March
open.
20th briefing, staff will come in then with a list of proposed
Items for the
Development
development code docket, for the docket.
Okay,
And this has been one that's been on the list for the past few years.
okay.
But it has been on the preliminary,
Mm-hmm.
not in the approved.
Okay, go ahead.
So you didn't mention percentages. I understand that it's 10% now, roughly, and we talked about maybe 30% being a fairer approach to everything. And could you give me an example of what this 10% thing helped somebody do something?
So
that they couldn't have done before?
we have different hard surface limits that are set for different zoning districts. For example, in one of our most common zoning districts, rural residential resource 1 to 5, we have a hard surface limit of 10%. And that was based on a few things. It was based on the knowledge that's out there, science about watershed protection. We know that it's not a specific threshold, but as you get to more and more impervious surfaces, generally as they go above 10% on a watershed scale, you start seeing negative impacts to streams.
How did that 10% number come up?
There were a series of scientific studies that were done in the 90s and 2000s, and there's a lot of reinforcement around this, looking at a landscape scale, water quality issues and water flow issues, and essentially as a area urbanizes and becomes developed, you start seeing issues in your streams, water quality failures, problems for aquatic species, so fish and other things. And the question is, how much development can you have before you start affecting the health of your streams? And that's where these thresholds came from. There were a number of studies that
Okay,
that came from.
Just to be clear, did Olympia Master Builders and did Olympia Master Builders and BIAW, the business group, see those 10% numbers when they were talking in their community work group?
All the changes that we made were reviewed by the community work group prior to, and they went through the public. We had a number of public meetings, and we invited all of those groups to come and review it.
I guess I understood from talking to those groups that they were not satisfied with the 10%, but it was imposed anyway.
And so the 10%. So let's have Allison finish her thought, because I think the 10% is the floor, and then you referenced that they could get credits.
Well, it was the most restrictive the group thought they could get away with, is what I was told. And to me, it seems like it is the absolute most restrictive, and a more common sense approach would be something like 30%.
What group? You said a group they can get away with?
Different, when they imposed this, they made it the most restrictive they possibly could.
The prior commission?
Yes.
Okay.
And Commissioner, to your point, as the Board of County Commissioners, this is exactly what we're asking for. If you've got new direction that you'd like to provide us, this is
I want to know, I want to provide the direction that meets the scrutiny of the legislation that originally put it in place, whether that's growth management, whether that's a legal decision. I really don't know the answer to that, but I think 10% is way too restrictive, especially when I see things taking place like the biosolids application that Department of Ecology has authorized up off the Nisqually River. I happen to know for a fact that the topsoil is very thin, the hard pan is very hard, allows for no absorption, and yet they're allowing topsoil to be, or biosolids to be applied there, and it can run right into the river. So where are we really protecting the environment? It doesn't seem like what is good for the goose is good for the gander. The individual that has 5 acres and wants to build a barn, has a long driveway, has been restricted from any common sense approach, even though the soil might be 30 feet deep before it comes to topsoil. So that is my big concern, that we give people some legitimate flexibility. And I don't see that 10% is anywhere near that.
Go ahead.
Well, I heard the opposite from your comments. I heard that 10% is really the highest amount before you start to adversely affect water quality, and so it seems absolutely reasonable place to land. Not looking at the most restrictive, but really looking at the least restrictive. You could go to 5% or 2%, but we're going to 10% because that's the absolute most hard surfaces we can allow without having the adverse effect that we don't want on our water. So I'm supportive of that. Now what I'm curious about, and I think you were getting there, and I probably should just stop and let you keep going, because you made the comments about being more accommodating to the smaller sites. And then you mentioned the credit system. So my questions are, what is meant by more accommodating to the smaller sites? Is it just allowing the credit system? Because what I understood about the credit system's good, because what it sounds to me like it's sort of like, it's kind of like our watershed planning. Like we allow this thing because we're asking for almost sort of a mitigation concept. Like you're going to do some other things that are going to have a positive impact on stormwater runoff and water quality. And I'm fine with that kind of flexibility. So when we talk about being more accommodating to the small sites, are we just talking about, you said that credit system didn't apply to the smaller sites, or or is there more to it? Is there more to this being more accommodating to the smaller sites? I want to make sure I understand what we're talking about.
So it could be, so the scope of whatever review that we do could be determined by the Board of County Commissioners. If you were to add it to the official development code docket, if you wanted to re-review all the hard surface limits, to Commissioner Edwards' point, and suggest that they be changed, and if that floor be raised to 30% or to some other level, that is something that we could do, and that we could review and consider as part of that update. And another thing that one thing that staff has identified that we would bring forward might be extending the credit system that we have, which does function much as you laid out, Commissioner Mentzer, to apply to smaller lots. And also, I think, to come up with some ways, working with our current planning staff and with the public and with many of these same organizations about what's going to work best for them. We do have a lot of examples of smaller lots that were developed in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, before we had our current rules in place. And so what we want to make sure is that we have solutions in place for people to make reasonable use of their properties. I think what I have heard from staff is that on the larger sites, on a 5-acre site, for the most part, there's enough room on the site to be creative and to work within the credit system, using the credit system or using the other rules together. But that doesn't mean that there aren't examples where it's been more challenging. And so if this item were placed on the docket, what staff would do within the scope that's set by the board of how large or how small an effort you want it to be to review those, to go and look really specifically at those examples and make sure we're crafting our regulations in a way that work for citizens as they come in, that gives them a pathway to move forward what they do. Part of what we did, what the state asked us to do with these rules, and what I think they are doing, is that people might come in with an old way that they want to develop, and it does, in many cases you have to go back and rethink it again and design the site in a way that it is more of a low impact design. But in the majority of cases, that is what's happening, and people are able to move forward. But there are definitely, we have identified some, especially for these smaller lots with a lot of pre-existing development, where we would want to refine the rules in a way that would address the concerns that have been raised by Commissioner Edwards and others.
Did that answer your question?
I
get to Romero when you're done.
Okay. Well, just
back to you.
to finish my thought, I'm very interested in any flexibility provisions that are kind of stormwater runoff neutral, if that makes sense. I'm not, as interested in things that are going to further deteriorate the situation that we have. Just to share with my seatmates, I had a meeting with Denny Heck about a week and a half ago, and just as an anecdote, he works on the Puget Sound restoration issues at the federal level, and at the end of our conversation, he brought up stormwater runoff numerous times, and at the end of the conversation I said, you live in my county, I'm your county commissioner, what's the most important thing that you think I could be working on for the citizens of Thurston County? And he said, stormwater, stormwater, stormwater. That was his answer. So that's kind of, again, it's not just that's just sort of an anecdote I wanted to share. It's something I've been aware of for years and years. I'm very proud of the low impact development standards that we developed through the process that you described in 2014, 2016, because I was tracking that. And I know that we were leaders and we're in compliance with state law, and I think we should stay where we are. If there's ways we can make things more flexible, like you say, implying the credit system and things that will not make the overall problem worse, I want to hear those. That's my 2 cents.
Romero.
Yeah, when we look at a low-impact development, and I believe at that time when the county passed this regulation, it was more looking at larger context. You talk about the stormwater, and the stormwater is the stormwater manual that we adopt. And the stormwater manual really is aligned to the DOE's stormwater manual. And behind all these improvements is the permit that they give us, is the NPDES permit, is the National Pollution Control System. And that permit is given us to operate independently from the state as to how we permit and go through the process of given permitting process. So when you look at what you consider whether this low-impact development needs to be reviewed, revised, always has to be within that context of the stormwater manual and the permit. So there's maybe some flexibilities within, may not be any flexibilities because it's more than just amending the Thurston County Code related to low-impact development. It's looking at widely as to what that impact will be related to our permit.
State permit.
The state permit, the state give us that permit to operate independently.
Go ahead.
When it comes to stormwater runoff, I think that, I believe what the congressman may have been pushing is things like, well, the county's got 9 ditches that run in, 9 or 12 ditches that run into Long Lake directly from the roadways and causes a lot of water quality issues for those people. That eventually does make it down to the salt water. We have all of the treatments, sewage treatment plants on the Puget Sound that during stormwater periods where there's a high rainfall, a lot of water being diverted into these plants, then they're overloaded and they open up the storm gates and they put completely untreated effluent and everything else right into the Puget Sound. Yep. So those are the bigger issues. When we tell someone that they can't use their gravel driveway, which has grass growing up in the middle, they can't use that as part of their 10%. I believe that is getting way too restrictive, and we allow these big issues of contamination to take place in our water and seem to do nothing about that, but we always hamper the little person from building the horse barn. I'll just use that as an example because it was a big case involving a party that lost a fair amount of money in the whole process and told they could not proceed because they had this long driveway and they had a house with a drive area, a deck. And the deck, the water goes through, but that was still an impervious position for them. And I've actually been involved in the impervious testing where they take the 5-gallon bucket and they poke holes in it and they time how much it takes for water to get through. I have never seen such a farce that puts a real burden on the little person and allows governments and other corporate entities to continue to pollute our waterways with almost seeming like no repercussions. And I just think we need to protect the little person, hold the corporate entities or the municipalities a little more accountable, and I think there's ways to do that. I don't think we're going to discuss that today and reach it, but the 10% is too restrictive for everyday building requirements. The 10% out on that property where the biosolids are being dumped, I'd say that's pretty applicable to the right way to do that ground because of the very shallow topsoil and the hard pan being right there. So I think there's places where it's applicable, but other places it's way too restrictive, and that's why I'd like to opt for, I don't know, 30%, 20%. I don't know what it is, but something that is less restrictive and still protects the environment.
So between Commissioner Edwards and Commissioner Menser, do you have your direction?
Well,
Ramiro, please.
And I'd just like to follow up, because what Commissioner Edwards stated related to the gravel surfaces. That's a good example as to why DOE changed, because the Department of Ecology made a determination the gravel surfaces are no longer considered impervious surfaces. And that's some of the restrictions that we have when we go about and change, looking for any potential changes on the code. So we always have to be cognizant as to how much flexibility we have within. And what you stated, that's a good example as to the Department of Ecology changed that, as to how we, from the engineering point of view, how we design what is pervious and impervious surfaces. And the gravel is considered impervious surface according to the DOE requirements.
And I would just, I mean, I would be a lot more comfortable with flexible things, like flexible ways to get somebody to 10%, you know, like exempting gravel. And if, like, let's say we were 2 years back and that we were thinking about that, and gravel doesn't work the same way as asphalt. But if what I heard Allison say is that the science basically supports 10%, I'd like to not get away from what the limit that's supported by the scientific data. If we let people get kind of more flexibly calculate and mitigate and things to get that, but to raise that to 20 or 30%, when that's not what I heard is warranted by the scientific data, I'd be extremely uncomfortable with that.
And if I may, this is just a good taste of
Right.
perhaps the conversation that is coming up.
On the 20th.
Yeah,
We can,
and I think the first step that you may need to consider is when staff comes back to you with a briefing of March 20, this item will be for your consideration to include it in the docket. And that conversation will be between among yourselves as to how the priority you like to put on those items, and that will be marching orders. And through, let's assume the board approves this item to be in the docket with a priority. Then there's going to be many conversations, many options the staff will bring to you, and you will have many opportunities to determine whether the current percentages are okay or some of the percentage may be able to change. But that will be the first step.
All right, Allison, do you have follow-up?
It was just to say just that that's an excellent discussion. I think we would be happy as staff if we have that direction from the board and it's placed on the docket and it's a priority item for you. We would be very happy to bring all those options open, to look at the science, to have a longer discussion, to dig into the examples, and to bring all those options back for your review.
So it'd be longer than 30 minutes.
Well, and I'd just like to acknowledge the great work of staff. We're balancing implementing strategic initiative number 6 in terms of development, strategic initiative number 7 in terms of protecting the environment, the requirements that state has applied that we must implement, and the commitment to our citizens to allow them to do with their land what they like within codes and ordinances. So staff is working really hard to balance all of those different missions, and so I just appreciate the great work that they've been engaged in.
I ditto that. Kudos to the staff. Anything further without getting deeper into the issue? No, because we'll have a lot more coming up on it.
Okay, I might just mention one other thing, that when it comes to water quality, we've got a campground that turned into a residential area. And I'm looking at Art, I think it's called Pleasant Forest? Pleasant, okay. And I think that's the kind of place you're referring to, Allison, when you talk about those developments that were put together in the 60s that were never intended to really be residential places. And now they've got a little 50 by 50 lot. They don't have any septic system that's really adequate, and it contaminates the fresh water that happens to flow through there that then flows into the salt water and causes us a problem. I think those are the things we need to pay attention to when it comes right down to let's fix what the problems are. We tend to look the other way from corporate involvement to, oh man, this one's a tough one to deal with. Maybe we don't want to look there either. But I think at some point we need to take on the tougher challenges and not just create feel-good things that makes it look like we're doing something and we're really not accomplishing much.
Josh, Allison, thank you very kindly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Public testimony.
Yeah, and this is, I'd like to follow up on the public testimony with a little more time that you received last week, and I think also in the previous weeks. One, the first one was related to, let me go back to my notes. Mr. Scott Bannister, and his testimony was related to the Second Amendment ordinance that he presented to you early in the year. As you may recall, that was pointed questions, or comments directly to me, but I believe it was a little bit of a misunderstanding. And after the meeting, I follow up with Mr. Bannister, where I explained that you, as a Board of County Commissioners, did look and did review the proposal on February 19th in the morning, and I encouraged them to go ahead and look at the video recording as to how that conversation went among yourselves. And at that point, the board decided not to take an action on his proposal of what I believe is an ordinance to declare Thurston County a sanctuary county related to the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. I just going to circle back this afternoon that in fact I did have a verbal conversation with him, just for the public to understand that I did follow up on that comment.
And I have a meeting with him in my office tomorrow.
Okay, good. So the other public testimony you received is twofold. It was from Mr. Pettit and Mr. Terry Ballard. And it was related, first Mr. Terry Ballard mentioned perhaps that I did not respond to a letter that Mr. Pettit submitted to me. And he submitted to me back in February 5th. And it was a letter that he prepared back in, I think, in 2016.
16?
Yeah.
Did we see that? Did we get a copy of that? I just don't recall.
No, it was me.
Okay.
So as a result, I did respond to him. I sent Mr. Pettit, CC, Mr. Ballard last Friday, and I'm going to give you copies of all of that. And just this morning, Mr. Pettit submitted a letter to you, no to me, making a reference of the letter that I wrote to him. I'm going to give you a copy. Grab a copy of that. So I'm going to take one of your copies. Okay. So I'm not expecting you to read all that correspondence.
I don't plan on it.
Okay.
Right now.
Okay.
So let me begin with the letter. And this is the testimony of the comments they made in terms of the on-site sewage system. And there really is the percentage of failures of the septic systems that it was included on the program and the plan. So on my letter, I believe I address that concern, and I believe I address as to how the percentages, and this is the letter that I have in here.
The second thing in the packet?
Yep.
Okay.
And I address that, I believe, to a great extent, and with the help of staff, obviously, as to how the 13-14% failure that Mr. Pitt and Mr. Ballard has outlined. Today's letter, let me just read the first part of that. And so this letter is to you from Mr. Pettit. This letter in response to a letter received from from County Manager Ramiro Chavez dated March 7, 2019, and the continued concerns related to the Henderson Inlet Selfish Protection Area. I will address several areas which shall include wrongful data of specific failure rates, failure to follow Henderson Selfish Protection Ordinance rules will require updates, and I will address that in a minute. And collection of the fees during time frame ordinance was not in effect. This issue I am bringing to your attention may fall within the level of criminal actions. And that is more related to the second part of his comment that he made related to the ordinance that it was passed when the commission increased the fee for the Henderson Inlet from to $10, an additional $10. So let me walk you through a little bit, and I have copies that I'm ready to provide to Mr. Pettit this afternoon. So back in 2005, and in fact, there were a couple ordinances related to the Henderson Shellfish Protection Program, right? And one needed to be done related to amending the code. And since the amending the code, it was the sanitary code that needed to be amended. So ordinance by the Board of Health, H3 2005, did that and amended the I'm sorry, I should give you copies of that.
Do we have that? Or, I mean, what you're referring to there,
I can make copies of the ordinances, okay?
Okay,
But let me give you the update.
okay.
So ordinance H3 2005 was passed back in 2005 by the Board of Health, amended the sanitary code, creating the Henderson Inlet. Step number one. Step number two, the Board of County Commissioners passed an ordinance 134070, which implemented the fees to address the Henderson Inlet Protection Plan. Ordinance 1347, and I think that's probably what Mr. Pettit making a reference to, had a sunset date of those fees to be December 31st, 2017, no 16. And that is clearly stated on the ordinance. And let me read this to you on the ordinance 134370. The sunset date, this provision of the sections entitled On-Site Sewage System Operations and Maintenance Program Financing, as may be heard thereafter, are repealed effective December 31st, may be repealed effective December 31st, 2017, unless the Board of County Commissioners take a different
Where are you
action.
reading from right now?
This is an ordinance that I have. I don't have
Oh, okay,
copies for
we
you.
don't have it in
Just-
front of us. Okay,
I give you
good enough.
copies of this,
No, that's fine.
okay? But I'm just giving
I
you
thought you were
the,
reading for something I was trying to follow along.
no,
that's all.
I'll give you copies, but I'd just like to make you aware that his comment was the overlap, that perhaps there was a gap between the previous ordinance, which is 134070, which had a sunset date of December 31st, 2017. And his public testimony last week, he said this ordinance lapsed or had a sunset date of December 31st, 2016. That's not necessarily accurate. So moving forward to 2017, we need to take different actions. The options was not to do anything, and the sunset date of December 31st, 2017 would have come to play, and the Henderson Inlet Protection Plan was gone. No fees, no nothing. But at that time in 2017, the Board of Health passed, again, amending the sanitary code under Ordinance H3 2017. That ordinance was passed on November 14, 2017. Okay?
That's the one where we implemented some additional fee collection or something?
No, this is just amending the sanitary code under the Board of Health, because the Board of Health cannot implement any taxation or fees.
Oh,
The companion ordinance,
Okay.
in which you took the fees that was supposed to be lapsed in December 30, or were supposed to lapse on December 31st, 2017. You reviewed that, you saw the benefits of the program, and then you took an action to increase that by $10.
Yeah.
And that was done under Ordinance 15514.
and what was the date on that?
That ordinance passed, let me give you that specifically.
December.
No.
Oh,
That order was passed in September,
Good.
in September 2017. September 2017, which it was become effective January 1st, 2018. So from our perspective, there is not a lapse in there. I think Mr. Pettit didn't have a copy of the initial ordinance in which outlines the sunset date was December 31st, 2017. So I will address that, and that's what I wanted to make sure that you track the different dates of the different ordinances. I will provide that in my report this afternoon. If Mr. Pettit is here this afternoon, hopefully we can address that. If not, I will send copies of the ordinances to him. And so those are the two items that he highlighted on the public testimony, so I'm ready to address that.
Okay.
Questions?
I guess from my perspective as the citizens watching, whether he's here or not, I think it's beneficial that you explain what you've just explained to us
planning to do that.
in that chronological list of time frames that are pertinent to this particular.
That's what I'm planning to do.
Okay, I thought maybe you were just going to send it to
No,
him.
I'm just rehearsing with you
Okay,
what I'm
good
going to say
enough,
this
good.
afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah, the public needs to know what the accusation was and then clear up
And
the
then to clear it up.
misinformation.
The public testimony, and that's one of the items that I need to bring back. And again, if Mr. Pettit is here, I will address verbally, but I'm planning to send copies to him of these ordinances regardless.
Good.
After
Yes.
this afternoon.
Good
Okay.
follow-up.
And if you like, I can make copies of all these ordinances for you.
I don't think I need the ordinances, but your final dissertation that you give today might be beneficial if it comes up that,
Oh, yeah.
no, the reality is we did this.
Good job,
this.
previous board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're off the hook, is that right? Okay.
All right, now we get down to commissioner items.
So what just last item, so on the latest letter, I will, from Mr. Pettit you received today, I will leave it up to your, go ahead and read it. I'm not going to give you my perspective of that letter, and maybe we can revisit this letter next Tuesday after you have the opportunity to read it.
And is,
I will.
So
I
I am not
understand
planning.
he's gonna read it or
I
something?
am not planning to. He might read this, and he might provide that in front of the
Okay.
public.
Oh, okay.
Making those the first paragraph, and again. But I'm planning to not address this letter that you received today this afternoon. I may address this letter next Tuesday after you have the opportunity to read it.
Okay.
and was his first allegation the other day, I mean, I remember something about the ordinance, we were illegally taxing or something. The percentage business on the ordinance, that's a different topic, is it? Is
Yeah.
that what's coming in today?
Yeah, and that is,
That's
I
the letter today.
addressed that in the letter that I sent
Okay.
to him and Mr. Ballard on Friday.
Okay,
I am not planning to read this
a
letter.
little too technical, I suppose.
I will address that. In fact, I did respond to both related to their percentages comments. But I really don't want to get into a dissertation.
Sure.
I think it's just, I think we have been responsive.
Yeah.
We have been responsive in addressing their comments. And at some point, if those comments, or those responses to the comments are not satisfactory to any citizen, then the citizen may take a different action. But at this point,
All right.
I believe we have been responsive.
There's more on this?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just kind of curious, oftentimes, when there's potential litigation, we'll go into executive
Session.
session to discuss some of this. I don't know if this was appropriate or not for that. When these type of allegations are made, is that kind of common that, would we kind of flesh that all out in an executive session? No.
No.
Okay, good enough.
Because obviously, any citizen has the option to bring any litigation against the county.
Okay.
And I believe the executive session is stated to that when you have a formal litigation in front of
Okay.
you. At this point, and I'm not saying that he may not, but at this point, we don't have that in front of you. So executive session is not justified.
Do you have anything more on this?
No.
Okay. So we've been at this for an hour and a half, and I'm being mindful of staff, all inclusive, but we're down to commissioner items. Do you have any burning commissioner items that you want to chew up, spit out?
I just had one thing. It won't take too long. I just need a couple of minutes. I just wanted to share.
That's fine.
Should I do that?
Yeah.
Okay. Just real quick, I had a meeting.
now?
Not that quick. Had a meeting with Pete Komet, Mayor of Tumwater, related to some housing information that he's been researching. He wanted to share it with the county commissioners. And I'm going to provide it to our staff, Gary Aiden and our new coordinator. But just so you're aware of what, he basically tried to do an inventory of all subsidized housing units in Thurston County, which he kind of figured out we don't really have. He did a whole bunch of, researching and phone calls and tried to collect, and he has a spreadsheet, but the net result is there's about 3,800 total subsidized units in our county, only of which about half of them are public and connected to nonprofits or the county or the housing authority or places that we'd be able to easily find them. There's another 1,900 units out there that private entities can go to the State Housing Finance Commission, and by doing a set aside of 20 or 25 units or some percentage of units for some period of time, like 20 years or 25 years, they can get a low interest financing. Well, those are units that are out there and they're kind of hidden. I think his idea is they're kind of hidden in our community from our county public inventory, and we should know about these. So I'm not sure that the people at Sidewalk and Community Youth Services and that they're really in connection with these landlords, knowing when there's vacancies and when there's a potentially available subsidized unit. So one thing that he asked us, and I'm going to try to take the ball, unless you have an objection, is to make sure that we have this information and we can kind of have this inventory. We can't really decide how we're doing as a community on number of subsidized affordable housing units if we don't know what's out there and we're not tracking these private entities that are seeking this public financing. That was one big piece of it.
Well, regarding that piece, though, is there not an implication, but is there a hint that perhaps these private folks that are doing that are not in compliance with the 10, 15, 20% occupancy?
It's possible.
No, they're very carefully monitored.
Are they? Oh, good. Okay.
Well, we don't. I mean,
we don't monitor them. The state does.
Yeah, that wasn't really the thrust of it. The thrust was to know. I mean, and then, to kind of know when those units are coming on and offline. I mean, they only have an obligation to keep them at subsidized rates for some period of years.
Yeah, a certain number of years, and then they come offline, so to speak.
So we kind of need to know that, and so that inventory is currently updated.
Someone needs to know that.
Yeah.
If not us, there are entities that should know that. You're right. That have people to feed in.
Well, hopefully the county would know as you make decisions in whatever iteration of the home consortium we're in.
Right.
You'd want to know how much affordable housing's out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to follow up and try to make sure that this information is disseminated. He also wanted to see if we could follow up with our assessor, and I'm having my assistant look at this to look, is there a way to track or to cross-reference his list with tax-exempt residential properties to try to flesh out. He just wants to make sure that the list is as complete as possible. So.
Very good.
And that was just something I wanted you guys to be aware of. We also talked a little bit about different approaches our housing authority could take and stuff. I think that's a conversation for a different day. So that's it for me.
Okay, good. You have a burning issue?
Just real quick. Sometime after our last meeting, it was brought to my attention that we might need to learn Robert's Rules of Order. And I think that was brought as a criticism probably of mine, and I accept that.
Mine too.
Well, yeah. I'm just asking, do we have like a Robert's Rule of Order form that kind of we follow in conducting our businesses? And if we do, can I have a copy of it? Or
Yeah, we can probably have a copy.
And not only for just review, but maybe to have up there and look at. I don't know.
And with that in mind, tomorrow, WASAC is presenting. They have a speaker coming in from 1 to 5. at the Wasatch Building downtown on professional development training. It's all about Robert's Rules of Order.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. That's tomorrow between
Tomorrow, 1 to 5,
1 to 5.
at the 206 10th Ave Southeast.
Okay, now I need to ask about the master calendar, I guess, because
Yeah.
I would like to go to that if I can make it work. I don't know that I can even make it work yet. I have to coordinate that. But would you need to put that on the calendar just, because I might be able to, were you planning on going, Mr. Chair?
Oh, it's on my calendar, yeah. They're talking
So-
about the roles and responsibilities of each of us.
I just
and
wonder if
Robert's
it's on the
rules.
master calendar so that I can at least stop in.
You said from 1 to 4,
It says 1 to 5.
1 to 5. You have a briefing from 2 to 3
Uh-huh.
tomorrow,
Yeah, I'll be leaving early for that.
and that's from the Washington State Extension.
Right, yeah. Yep, I'm aware of that.
So if 2 commissioners are planning to attend this training on WASAC, we need to cancel that briefing.
Wait, what's the briefing? From 1 to
On
what?
The extension is the Washington State Extension.
Okay, and that's tomorrow at what time?
From 2 to 3.
Okay, I don't have it on my calendar because I wanted to get this training underway.
Is in the master calendar.
I'm double booked too, for a different reason, so it wouldn't, I would vote to, if these guys.
To move it on, move it somewhere
To
else?
cancel the Washington State Extension.
And get it on
That
later
where
date?
Yeah.
At a later date.
I would second that.
School,
So remember the reason last week, as part of your board agenda, you had the memorandum of understanding, formalizing the transfer of $165,000 to the
Yes,
extension.
yeah.
That was delayed with the hope the director of the extension will come and give you a presentation as to what the value added of that investment is. But if you feel comfortable, this item for approve the MOU to give them money is scheduled for the 26th of March. But if you feel comfortable not to have approved that MOU without having that briefing, that's okay.
Well, and I wouldn't be here tomorrow anyway for that briefing, and I won't be here on the 26th either. But these guys will be.
So it really is up to you. If you don't want to have that briefing, you want to reschedule, you have conflicts, let me know, we'll
Okay,
cancel.
Go ahead.
Isn't this memorandum that we've signed is the same, and I don't say it's identical, but we've been through this several times before. It's kind of standard operating procedure with the university, and I think Stephen Brumwell kind of brings us some information in. But there's no controversy here, is there?
No, it's just what I call is the instrument in which we can have that financial transaction.
And you need us to take that action.
Well, yes, yeah.
Is there any reason we couldn't put it on the agenda for 2 o'clock today and take that action?
He's not available today.
Well, maybe he wouldn't need to be here. Maybe you could brief us. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just,
Maybe we can probably bring that to the next week.
okay.
Yeah.
if
is
it's-
this the
if it's
annual
timely.
meeting where the president of the university comes?
No, I don't believe so.
No,
Ooh.
okay.
Okay, then the one issue I had was, last week I met at TRCP.
TRPC?
Yeah, you see, that's right. And this has to do with the courthouse location and all that. And one of the issues that came up just as future to be on the radar was building a seawall in Olympia to retain sea level rising. So I just continue to wonder how that all plays in.
To the biosolids?
No, not to the biosolids, but it could be looked at as a very stinky deal, if I'll just leave it go at that. On the courthouse, I mean, if we're talking a $300 million courthouse down there, they're talking about a $300 million seawall to protect the $300 million courthouse. I'm wondering how the public's going to perceive that, that's all.
I've seen the maps, because I'm definitely was concerned about that. And I think that, the positioning on Plum and Union is way beyond where
Is
the
it?
sea level encroachment is expected.
Okay.
So that's definitely been thought about.
Yeah, and even in the worst case scenario, that side is probably 16 feet higher than the high water mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even with the high tides,
The worst-case scenario,
worst-
king tide
tide,
scenario?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
Even
when we
the
were
way-
at Ocean Shores and we're talking about liquefaction and, you know, a massive earthquake, that's a different conversation, but.
Yeah.
With a 70-foot tidal wave.
With a
or-
tsunami, yeah.
Tsunami. So,
Okay.
circle back.
Circle back.
On the briefing tomorrow on
Yes.
the extension. Would you like to cancel?
Yes, if we
Okay.
can squeeze them in to an appropriate time.
So if there is an
Soon.
opportunity to have that briefing prior to, we'll manage. If not, I will bring this item for you to take an action on the MOU.
That saves us double booked. It
Yeah,
saves you.
That'll work.
Okay.
Can I ask Commissioner Edwards about Robert rules? Because I think what's come up, at least during my 2 months, twice, is doing it's like when we have an agreed amendment,
Yeah.
and we've done it 2 different ways, and I thought actually the second way we did it felt right to me, but then that's when the citizen came up and said, you guys don't know Robert's rules. So maybe I don't know, but if we could just discuss that scenario, I think that covers the 90% of what we have to deal with. It's
So
like,
I can certainly go back to Robert rules. My understanding is because there is a proposed action on the agenda, you need to read the proposed action. You need to, at that point, you have a discussion. During the discussion is you may consider amendments to that action. And that's what you did last week.
during the discussion,
You
Move.
the proposal
second it,
and
Yeah.
and get a second.
then it's a discussion.
Then you have discussion, open it for discussion. An amendment is made,
Okay,
you have a motion on the amendment, you take action on the
somebody have to
amendment
second
if
the
it's seconded.
the amendment.
If it's seconded, then you take action on the amendment, and then if
Now you're
the
basically like on
amendment
another
passes-
layer of discussion.
That's right.
And you can have discussion on the amendment,
That's correct.
and you vote.
And then you take action if it's got a second, and then.
Then what happens?
If-
You go back
if
to the,
the original motion is amended, you take action on the amended motion.
Yeah. Last week.
I think we did it that way.
Yeah,
last week.
It's what you did last week.
exactly what he did last week. Last week, the only difference on the process is it was not a second on the amendment.
So the amendment died.
So when the amendment doesn't have a second, the amendment dies.
But then and then you're back to the upper
Back to
layer
the initial,
of,
which that's what you did.
yeah, okay.
And I'm getting 4 hours of this tomorrow.
Okay.
All of a sudden, he wants the WSU briefing back.
Yeah.
I guess my question was, it seems like on one of those interactions, and it must have been the first one, we had made a change in the verbiage on a motion that I was to read.
And that was
And it
also.
wasn't, the information we'd given out to the public kind of was erroneous, I guess, and that's why we did it in a
That
different
was a
way.
friendly amendment.
Yeah.
That you did, yeah. It was the same
And that,
process that
okay,
we followed.
okay, a little different, okay. Well, we'll get that all figured out, I bet.
But also you go through, for instance, last week you also amended the agenda, as you may recall.
Yeah, we did amend the agenda. Yep.
And that's also, it's a little bit different than
All
our
right.
motion.
And my burning issue is not burning. I'll just chat with you about it later, and we'll talk about it next week. Thank you.
Well, I've got several more, but they're not burning.
Okay, good. Anything? We're done, we're adjourned. Thank you very much. Be back here at 2 o'clock, or just before.